Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday, December 12th meeting. I'm going to read the agenda. Sometimes we take some items out of order if we need to, but currently our agenda is as follows. We have community input, appointments and resignations at 7:05, at 7:15, town meeting study committee charter proposal, 7:25, ARPA recommendations, 7:35, town administrator budget report, at 8:30, the public safety building renovation conceptual designs, at 9:25, alcoholic beverages control commission local license approvals, at 9:30, town administrator report, at 9:40, reviewing the minutes and warrants, 9:45, cemetery deeds, 9:50, liaison reports, and at 9:55, additional community input, and we try to adjourn about 10 o'clock. So I'm first going to call for community input. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to offer community input? Yeah, you need to come to the phone, identify yourself and give us your street name, number, please.
Good evening, Eric Ballas. I'm co-chair of the Environmental Sustainability Committee, and I live on Knoll Farm Road. And I understand that the wastewater treatment facility project is on the agenda today and may likely move forward at this point. I also understand it's been a long road in the procurement process. I just wanted to, and I have no insight as to what the ARPA feedback might be relevant to that project. But I just want to offer that personally, as a member of the ESC, I can offer a couple of thoughts and suggestions if desired when you discuss that. But I also understand that the procurement has been a long time coming. And on my final note, I want to just say that the ESC is happy to provide input and other types of information for future projects along the same lines that are not as far down the road.
Thank you. Normally we don't respond, but I'm just going to say that what's on the agenda is indeed an ARPA, but it's only really dealing with how the project's going to be funded. It's a school project, and they're the ones really that are the ones that make the decision about the
Understood.
project.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anybody else for community input? Anybody on the Zoom? If you would raise your hand, electronic hand or real hand. Not seeing none. I think we'll go on to our 7:05 appointments and resignations. We had an appointment of Officer Dean, and I'm going to probably not pronounce it right, Barbera before, but tonight we're having a badge pinning. So I'm going to invite Chief Amendola to come forward and take care of that.
Thank you very much for allowing us to come here tonight and have a badge pinning ceremony for Officer Barbera. He's been working in the town now for a little bit, so it's nice to finally do this for him and his family. Officer Dean Barbera began his law enforcement career in 1994 with the Waltham Police Department as a police cadet. Eventually, he became a Waltham police officer after completing the MBTA Police Academy in 2000. Shortly after becoming a police officer, Officer Barbera went to law school, graduated, and passed the bar exam on his first attempt. Officer Barbera then pursued a career as an attorney. In December of 2021, Officer Barbera still had the itch to get back into policing and got hired by the Northeastern Police Department, where he went to the police academy for a second time. Officer Barbera later lateraled to the Carlisle Police Department. He is a former member of the United States Marine Corps until he finally came to his sense and joined the United States Army, where he achieved the rank of major. Officer Barbera also likes to partake in ultramarathons, a crucial attribute we saw in himself that would relate to the level of commitment and service that he will bring to the town of Carlisle. Officer Barbera will be penned by his daughter. She wants to.
Sorry. Move my water, sorry. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Good work.
congratulations. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining us.
You want to do it? You gonna fight over it?
And tell Athena it's not everything is not about her.
She's waiting for her. She's got nuts.
She's had her opportunity.
Yes, you.
If I could just say one last thing, look around the room, there's a lot of support here for Dean tonight. It's a exciting moment when you finally get your badge pinned on you as a police officer. So thank you for the Carlisle police officers that showed up in support of him as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Okay,
okay, thank you.
happy occasion.
It is, always. So we do have an appointment. Do I have a motion, please?
I move
Go ahead.
to appoint Alana Lynch to the position of Assistant Town Clerk effective December 13th, 2023, pending successful salary negotiations and required hiring administration.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ryan, do you have any notes or comments to say?
Yes, just that a screening committee was assembled for this appointment, led by Peggy. Aubrey was there to help as well. We interviewed a great deal of qualified candidates, and Alana rose to the top pretty quickly. The group was very excited to bring her forward and believe that she has the right mix of, if you look at her resume, interesting talents to not only bring to the technical job of assistant town clerk, but also help the town in different areas. So we're thrilled to bring her on board. I believe she starts tomorrow, and get her right to work, right in time for the the biggest election in at least recent memory, right? So that'll be fun.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. Anybody
Great.
else have any comments?
Please.
Questions?
Just say her letter was great. So
Yeah.
enthusiastic, right? It comes right through how excited she is to be here and what she wants to bring to the job. So that was great.
Excellent. All right. Let me see.
Then we have-
David is here, so we can do David, are you on? For a roll call
Yep.
vote?
I'm on, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do a roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, aye.
Snell, I.
Great, thank you. Okay, resignations.
But do you want to do this other appointment, Kate, for the CPC?
Yes, okay. Yes, sorry. Wasn't on the
So it-
agenda.
yeah,
I keep
but-
on losing it.
Didn't make it on the agenda, but we have in front of us the letter from Maureen Cosgrove Deary, who submitted this some time ago about her interest in being the filling the position of the citizen at large on the Community Preservation Committee. So I would like to make a motion that we appoint Maureen Cosgrove Deary to take the citizen at large position on the Community Preservation Committee for a term of
It's
Hmm.
3 years.
uh,
Well, it's not
no, I
3
think
years anymore, but
it's 1 year for everybody else on the
was it 1
committee.
year?
But this would be, but that is
So this would fill
June,
to June 30th.
till June 30th of 2024. Okay.
Okay.
Is the CPC, has the CPC, are they supporting her?
We've not had a formal meeting about this. Partly because there's been a change in the chair. I don't know, if Drew is resigning, which is later on our agenda, but because this person has been interested in this position for some time, and I am pretty confident that the CPC does support it. I may have spoken to a few people individually, but we've not taken official
Okay.
vote on
She
it.
got caught in this, in the
I'm not
change of policy.
opposed to it at all. It's just,
Yeah.
we just went through the process of how we're going to
Yeah.
do this. And the very first one isn't.
Yeah.
But I'm not opposed to it all.
Yeah.
Making a point.
It was just an unfortunate thing that she had applied before we changed the policy. And then there was no meetings for CPC, so it just kind of got,
Mhm.
I can't, In fact, she kept on being put off because of the policy being changed, and then,
So
It
she
just at this
applied
point-
before December 3rd.
yes.
And also one thing, I wasn't sure about this, that because we have not, the citizen at large position, it doesn't represent any particular board or committee. And so is it the case that the CPC then is the committee that should consider it and submit their recommendation for an appointment? Just in general, I'm asking.
Oh, that's good.
Because, right, because we've not done that.
We've always wanted the committee to kind of show us support for who it was that we were appointing.
Well, not the CPC committee, right? It's been typically the RecCom or the Housing Trust, whatever group that person was representing. But in this position, the person is a citizen at large, so they aren't, put forward by any particular committee or commission. That's why I was raising it. And I know in the past, the person that's filling it just was appointed by the select board, but again, I appreciate our new policy and that it certainly would be a good thing going forward.
Say we need to clarify that then in the new policy.
That's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. I support,
shouldn't
I
do this.
support this candidate, and I think that going forward, we really do need to implement this new procedure that we adopted. And all these candidates go in through the town, I believe, right? It's through Aubrey or, and get
Through,
It's through Gretchen. So
through Gretchen. Okay.
and we are sticking to your policy that if you have to submit a letter of interest and it has to come to us in writing.
there's an online form for people who are listening in. There's an online form that you can fill out and put a whole bunch of committees on if you are interested in more than one. It doesn't have to be just for a particular slot. The slots don't even have to be open because we're going to be keeping these on file and be referring to them and then reaching back out to people when there is a slot to see if they're interested or still interested or so. Okay. So we have a motion on the table. Did somebody second it?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? And again, we're doing a roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, aye.
Snell, I.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, now we can get to the resignations. Normally we have motions for accepting resignations, but I guess we're going,
So we
not
looked into this. So
Yeah.
every time we vote on this, the same comment is made. What if we say no, right? So
Yeah.
we're notifying you of the resignation so that you understand there's a vacancy and you can hold us accountable for following your policies for appointing and working on filling the vacancy. So we believe it's streamlined by letting you know publicly and announcing the resignations without needing a vote.
okay, but we'd
If
like
you
to
want to vote,
express regret or not regret, appreciation of the service. So,
I just have a question. Is this the Denise that we just pinned?
we did regrettably.
Oh.
Denise got an excellent officer to be a police officer in Worcester. I believe it is her hometown and something she's dreamed of for a while. So we are doing exit interviews to make sure that is truly the reason why she's leaving us. But she is leaving us, and we're not pleased with her. So, but in a good way, we're happy for her.
We're not pleased with the outcome.
Yeah.
okay,
And just quickly, I'm back on the Recreation Commission. Now we'll have a opening. Is that already been posted? Do we know?
It is not. So this is the trigger for us to do that.
Oh, okay. So we would have to be notified in this way going forward.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless you tell us otherwise, we just don't want you to read about it in the mosquito.
But are you asking about Recreation Commission because we just filled his position on CPC?
No, we didn't.
Oh, okay.
No, I was asking because,
There's one on each then.
well, right, but the Recreation Commission would be the ones to put forward somebody for CPC, and it might or might not be a new person, right, that fills the vacancy.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we're going to move to Town Meeting Study Committee. I see that Wayne is here. Charter proposal.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
sorry, I thought we were gonna go around the room. I just want to say a few words about Drew. He's been he's been a tireless supporter in a lot of roles. He was instrumental in, I think, getting the fields down at CCHS, raising private funds, getting all that organized. He's been a longtime RecCom guy. He took on what turned out to be kind of a thankless task in taking or promoting the gift of the donor for pickleball courts. He kind of ran into a buzzsaw that was not of his own making, and tried really hard to convince people that was the right thing to do, to build the courts. And he's taken on pretty much all kinds of roles. As you know, his wife is also a longtime volunteer in a variety of roles, FinCom and school committee. So, really a civic-minded family. And I understand, from his letter that work requirements, he is a managing director of a wealth management firm. So I imagine, like all of us, he's got a lot going on. But I just want to commend his long service, and I hope when he's ready, he comes back in. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Great. So Wayne is here. We have a new drafts, a red line draft. Have everybody had a chance to look at it? Did you get feedback, but by other people other than me?
Thank you, Kate. So I did not hear any feedback from the public. I don't know if Ryan collected it. I presume you would have forwarded if you had. And so the draft you have in front of you just reflects my attempt to capture the comments from last time. And at this point, I think you know where I stand on it. I'm supportive of it. And so it's just up to you to decide whether you want to adjust it in any way, hear from the public. And I hope you'll vote on it tonight so we can get moving.
Great.
I mean, I'll just say that, I did review this. This was all Wayne's work. I kind of disappeared on him this past week. But I think it's great. And I think that it really captures what we talked about.
So my only question that is still outstanding is around membership. And my comment was, if this is a committee that's designed to attract new people to come, should it be filled with old people? And should we make more room for the residents that aren't coming to our town meetings?
Long-time residents, right? Long-time residents.
Long-time residents, right, okay, anyway. And I see that the AD is still, the town administrator still seems to be a member, and I'm just wondering if we need to have the AD as a member or as an ex officio, if we could put him as an ex officio like moderator is.
I had that question too. So right, the way you've written this, does the town administrator have a vote?
Yes, I think I wrote it that way.
Yeah, because you just say that you as the moderator don't have a vote, but so I assume it meant that.
I think I must have just been self-interested because I was focused on that. I think I shouldn't have a vote. But I certainly, I second your intent there, and probably the same reasoning, and you should hear Ryan's opinion. But look, people, I know people will be open-minded and listen to us, and that's more than enough influence. I don't think we need a vote, and hopefully there'll be something that they disagree with us on, and just stand up and say, "No, you're wrong." And I can respect that. That'll be a good thing.
The way it's written here, if my math is right, there are 3 potential from a board, or include, and the town administrator, and there are 4. That is just anybody who's interested, but the select board and the finance committee are just given the option to nominate somebody. They don't have to.
So, yeah, so your question, really what it boils down to is, do you want it to be 5 general spots or 4? It's a majority either way.
Right.
And at least, I do think, and this, in part, this is coming out of the experience of what things went well and what things didn't go so well with the town governance committee. I thought it was really, really vital that there be clear understanding. And it doesn't need to come through a formal appointment, but a clear understanding and expectation from you as the select board, not just to yourselves and to FinCom, but to other significant committees. We do want your input on this. Don't ignore this committee. And, similar to the committee itself, get that input, listen to it. Not that you need to roll over and play dead, but take it seriously.
Just maybe, I don't know, Nathan or Wayne, do you want to offer sort of a suggestion about why we would want the town administrator to be a voting member? Because typically we haven't had a staff person have a vote on a committee, but I'm open to it if there's some reason for it.
I'll go first. I think one of the things that we talked about was that we do want to get a lot of input, but we also want to make sure that there's a very solid knowledge on the committee as to what the process is and how it moves forward. And so that's why I like the select board can do it, the finance committee can do it, but the person who really knows all of those processes other than Wayne is the town administrator. And that's why I thought it was good to have him on there as a voting member.
I think you can require me to be there, and I would be happy to and bring any information or any staff that would help with the decision making, but I don't think that I should be able to vote. So I think I can bring everything that you just said and wanted without voting.
Mm-hmm.
That way it's the town's decision, not influenced by me.
So shall we make a motion on this? But maybe would you all accept an
Can we just-
amendment to just say that the town administrator is where does it say? The town administrator will serve, or his designee will serve as a non-voting member. Does that work?
Yeah, and all other changes required to accommodate that.
Is there a difference between ex officio and non-voting?
Yeah, you can have ex officio that vote.
You can. Okay. And okay.
Well, some of the nonprofit boards that I've been on, that's what they do.
Yes, I only learned that one about 4 or 5 years ago myself. But I learned it the hard way. That's why it's in there.
Do you want to make the motion or you want me to make it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't read the whole thing, but let me just say, so I move that the select board accept the charter for the town meeting study committee as amended at the meeting this evening to begin committee formation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, it's a roll call vote.
Did you want to see if any, I don't think there's been much of a public opportunity to comment. Maybe just ask before you vote.
Okay, we can see if there's any public comment. I don't know that they've.
Good to
I
have.
don't know either, but I
Yeah,
think
we-
I think it's important.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Seeing none,
Okay.
we'll have our roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Modell, I.
Reed, aye.
Snell, aye.
Excellent.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
then I just have one last question since I haven't seen your new policies. I looked for them, but I wasn't able to find them on the website. So just so I know in case, so I can talk it up, people submit their interest in writing to Ryan, Aubrey, Gretchen, what's the, how's it done?
There's an online,
preferred, but if you go to any staff member, we'll follow you to the.
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
but there is also an online application form.
Or
And I'll see if I can
sort of a
find that.
letter of interest outline, right?
Carlisle.gov.
Yeah, and Wayne, the idea is that
Where is that, in fact?
we, once there is an opening on a committee, that would be publicized for a certain amount of time and a description provided, through various social media outlets, including the Mosquito, with a deadline for submitting your letter of interest to town hall. And then the process would go forward from there in terms of that person, or if there's more than one for one position, then there'd be a discussion that happens in terms of who would be put forward, and the relevant committee would be given the opportunity to meet that person, but it would be asked for their recommendation about that appointment if they wanted to provide that.
I think
Great.
Mary Lynn just put it in the chat.
Okay, good.
Okay,
This is
great. Thank you very much.
I was just waiting. So it's on the select board page,
Yes.
the left navigation, along with other useful online forms like requesting a Rotary sign or volunteering for the town. So we're going to try and put a electronic form for all the things that you can request. And then we'll direct people to that so we're getting uniform information that matches what we need to vote.
Wayne, thank you for leading this.
Yeah. Okay. Close all this. ARPA recommendations, Scott. You get rid of this.
Good evening. The ARPA committee met yesterday to discuss a couple of requests that has been on our docket for a while. And I'm just going to quickly go through the two recommendations we made. And I'll note Kate and I were there. John Kaufman was not in attendance. So the votes reflect Kate and I, as noted in the handout. And David, if you're out there, I emailed you this about 10 minutes ago. So if you want to look at it, check your email.
I'm driving, so I won't do that. I'll just listen to you.
All right. So the first recommendation goes back to the Carlisle Public School wastewater treatment plant makeup air unit modernization. And this is a project that we approved ARPA funds for back in April. At the time, the request was $58,362 to replace the existing makeup air units. They subsequently put the project out to bid. The bids they received back over the summer were around $80,000. They undertook a second bidding process and received bids in the same neighborhood of the $80,000. So the request here is it doesn't change the project. It reflects the increased cost of the makeup air units. One of the things we as a committee questioned them about was in light of, the emphasis on energy efficiency, what some other options would be for this. We had a discussion about that. Ryan presented some additional information regarding potential alternative equipment. Not a lot of specific data, but essentially it would require new design, more time. And in the end, the recommendation from the school, Jim and Stephen and Ryan, was to proceed as originally planned with replacing the existing units. So based on that discussion, the ARPA committee recommends the select board increase the ARPA funds for that project to $84,000. The vote was 2-0 with one member not present. We can discuss that, or I can just quickly, the second recommendation is for $10,000 in matching funds to be used for the community planning grant for Carlisle's subsurface hydrogeology study. This is something that was brought to us again back in May. At the time, we didn't take a position on it. We were waiting to see if Carlisle would receive the grant, because obviously we'd only use the funds if the grant was received. And we did in fact receive the grant, which I believe was for a substantial amount. It's
Yes.
$100,000 or something like that.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so based on that, receiving the grant, at the meeting yesterday, we formally recommended that the select board approve the $10,000 in matching funds to accompany that grant. So those are the two recommendations. At a high level, this represents about $36,000 in ARPA funds. If you were to approve these, you would have essentially $100,000 in ARPA funds remaining and $20,000 in contingency. And I will note there's a couple of projects that we're currently evaluating to see if we can in fact use the ARPA funds that have been allocated. One is the grant elevator studies being done on that to determine the scope of the work that's needed, along with the scope of the work for some other elevators in town. Based on that study, we'll know if the original funded amount can support that project, or if it's significantly more, we may have to find an alternate funding source and return the ARPA funds. Also, we were talking with Ryan about the document scanning. That's another one where there may be $30,000 to $50,000 returned, just given the pace of that project. We may not be able to use ARPA funds to complete that project or the complete stage one of that project as intended. If the timing's not going to work out, that may be another one where we have what I would consider significant funds coming back into ARPA. And our hope is to get this all nailed down in the next couple of months so that we can balance what we have remaining, which needs to be committed by the end of this year and spent within 2 years. Balance that with some of the budget requests that are happening to see if we can use ARPA funds for some of the existing budget requests for fiscal 25.
You said committed by the end of this year. Did you mean 20?
I'm sorry, yeah, next year, 2024, 5.
December 31st, 2020.
You have to commit the funds by December 31st, 2025, and you have 2 years after that to actually spend the committed funds. But we don't want to be in a situation where we've committed funds to a project that's in 2026. And then as we see with some of these capital projects, the timing or the funding doesn't quite work out as you hope. So I think we want to be pretty much done by the end of 2025 spending. Are there any questions about these two particular recommendations?
I don't have a question about the recommendation, but I do want to say that I think it worries me a little bit that we would be spending money on a study that could potentially, that is to study whether or not we should change the density of our zoning. And we really haven't had a discussion around that much as a town. So that's a bit of a concern to me. I understand that we've gotten a grant. I guess I didn't know that was the point of the grant, was to study the density of development in Carlisle. And I think that's
There's,
big.
yeah.
I think that's I mean, that would be a really big discussion that the town should have.
you are aware of the MBTA zoning requirements, right? That we have to find a zone or as overlay somewhere where they can have 15 units per acre.
That's
In the
not
town.
That's not at all in here, and that,
Well,
so, I mean, well, it is, but so just because there's the MTA requirement doesn't mean that we're immediately should start on studies that could potentially change the zoning from a 2-acre zoning in Carlisle without the town having that discussion. That should be a very public discussion, I would think.
the planning board is having that discussion, has had a lot of that discussion, and this is part of that whole kind of universe of studying feasibility.
Okay, I guess I haven't seen any of that. I'd like to vote on these separately.
Okay, do we need a motion then?
Yeah.
On these two? I move that the select board, can we do them together?
I'd like to vote on.
You wanted to do them separately?
Yeah, please do them separately.
I move that the select board approve an increase in the ARPA amount approved for CPS, the wastewater treatment plant makeup air unit modernization from a total of 58,362 to 84,000.
Second.
Discussion on this one? Roll call.
I have a
vote.
question, before you jump. So I'm sorry, because I this was drop off. I was sort of distracted. That cost of the wastewater came in higher than we thought, right?
Yes,
Is that the change in this ARPA to cover that?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
The bids exceeded the original estimate.
Okay, and this will be 100% paid from ARPA funds?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sorry, this will be 100% paid out of ARPA, the wastewater treatment
Yeah,
costs?
this represents the entirety of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, roll call.
Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Odell, I.
Reed, aye.
Snell eye.
I move that the select board approves $10,000 in ARPA matching funds to be used for the community planning grant for Carlisle subsurface hydrology study.
It's a hydrogeology, actually.
Sorry, hydrogeology
Okay.
study. Thank you.
That's okay. Because, is there a second?
I'll second. I'd like to discuss that a little bit.
Okay.
Because I do like Nathan's point about that, could be a big, endeavor for the town, but I do think, having read the description of the project, I think I support it because, I think this is just good information. We can then have policy discussions once we have more information. So I think that, it would be wise for the town to do this, especially because I think we've obtained this grant to do it, which I think is beneficial. I'm not sure I'd be as supportive if we hadn't had, additional funding, but because we can get additional funding, and I think it's a valuable thing for the town, I think we should, begin to understand our natural resources better.
I also want to add, the Board of Health was very instrumental in getting this grant proposal together too. So they worked hand in hand with the planning board around this to get it done.
So, if I may, I don't disagree with you, Travis, at all. I think though, oftentimes the way things are written is kind of given as to why we're doing something. And this states to identify areas where more density could be accommodated and make recommendations to zoning amendments based upon the findings. So it is actually could be read as that is the next step after this, and that is a given, and that we have approved that next step by approving this here. Because it's right in there. You hear it all the time. Well, this was in the motion. It was an idea of what it might have been used for, not really saying this is why we're doing it. And so that's why I oppose to it. I do not oppose to having something where we're doing hydrogeological study. But this one here is setting that next step, in my opinion.
Who came forward with the request to ARPA?
So in looking at this, there was an original draft, and I know Julie added some additional information. So I don't know if she's on the call.
She might be upstairs.
Here later.
Oh, she'll be here later. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to comment.
Yeah.
I know when we discussed it was focused on the hydrogeological, getting that information. I don't know if
There's all
It's-
kinds of good reasons for us.
there's all kinds of good reasons.
Board of Health wanted it because they're having all these, oh, there she is.
Well, they're run.
You're right on time.
We're talking about the hydrogeological. Yeah, join us at the, next to Scott.
Julie, yesterday we voted to recommend the $10,000 in matching funds to the select board. And so we're discussing that now. And I think if I were to summarize, there's some concern about the description and what it implies in terms of housing density. I think when we discussed it was more about the hydrogeology. I don't know if you could just speak to what the intent of this study is and maybe what the next steps would be.
Sure, yeah. So the intent of the study is to get more specificity around what our groundwater can support, like what areas of town might be able to support more density. I do think it's possible that the study will show that maybe there aren't really any good areas of town, which would result in a different type of conversation. It could also be that the study identifies areas that are really important to protect as well. So those things are all part of the scope. Right now, I'm working with the Board of Health to try to hone the scope because $190 or $100,000 with the ARPA funds is not enough to do like a really detailed analysis of the whole town. So we're looking at sites that have been identified in the housing plan, sites that have been identified in the master plan, corridors where commercial development or traditionally development has happened in town, and then locations that are close to commercial areas and abutting towns. And we're taking those sites and kind of narrowing them based on like environmental constraints, the USGS mapping that the Board of Health has provided to me that they have currently, their consultant who's worked for the town for 40 years, who does the soil, witnesses soil testing, and makes recommendations to the Board of Health is also helping because he has a vast, deep, and broad knowledge of the town. So we're working to kind of refine the scope, the areas, and then from there we would put out, I think, potentially a request for quals. I need to work with Ryan to have consultants tell us like, okay, within this money and within these areas, what would be the, like, how would you approach this? Versus us telling them how we want them to approach it. But that's something that's still on the table to be worked out. So have a good answer.
That doesn't, to me, the wording is still here this way, but also I think understanding if we were doing this, what are those areas that we would be doing it? And, like what are we beginning here? I think is important to know. Particularly when we're talking about potential zoning changes.
But that's not strictly what it's for. It's also because the Board of Health has been struggling because whenever they get accessory apartments, they don't know what areas can support more of those or not. And so they have to, kind of, it's a lot of work for them, and this would help them a lot.
As long as those areas that were decided were within wherever somebody wanted to do an accessory apartment, right? An accessory apartment is something that a homeowner decides to do.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that they have to come to the Board of Health when they want to do it, and the Board of Health could use this information and doing
As long as it was within the zones
Yes,
that they were doing the study.
That's true.
Yeah.
So the feedback I've had, at least I can't speak obviously for the Board of Health and I can't speak for a majority of them, and I can only, but the feedback that I've had from a few of them who I'm working with, or one in specific who I'm working with, is that this is going to be very helpful and great information for them to have when they're evaluating all sorts of projects, and that it could also be useful to homeowners and developers in the future when they're trying to figure things out initially when they're looking at sites. So it could serve a number of different purposes, more than just what's specified.
You weren't here when I made my initial thing, which is I'm not against having a hydrogeological study here. What I don't like is the wording that the reason why we're doing this is to see where we can increase density and change zoning.
Okay.
I think that's a discussion that the town would need to have first before we started saying, we're going to look over there and maybe change it to 1 acre zoning or something like that. I think there would be a lot of people in town who would really want to know that. And I just want to, I personally, don't support this as long as it's worded in a way that it seems to be saying, and then go do it and study the zoning.
Right.
I think knowing what the hydrogeologic subsurface water is, to speak totally non-scientifically, I think is a good thing to know.
Right. So let me just say why this is worded this way. So I don't like to be tricky, and the grant was a community planning grant, right? And a lot of the community planning grants that are available these days are related to housing and related to MBTA communities. So the way to write the narrative to acquire the grant funds is to tie it to something planning related. Obviously this data would help us figure out if there are areas of town that could support greater density or greater different types of development. The process for changing zoning, as you know, is a whole separate lengthy town-wide multi-year process.
This won't change the zoning. You have
Right.
to go to.
This in
no.
itself does not change the sign.
Should we articulate maybe what the output of this is? Would that be helpful? If, I mean, because the approval would be for matching funds for the hydrogeological study.
I don't want at the end of this,
Yeah.
there to be people coming in here and saying,
Right.
you approved,
Right.
are looking into zoning when you approved this funding.
So I'm trying to, so the recommendation would be, the output of this will be what? The study? It'll be,
So actually, I'm shocked it was awarded because most of what I wrote and the scope that I outlined was actually entirely like, and I'm not a scientific person either, so the Board of Health was very helpful in that, like identifying specific strategies for how this work, how these things could be identified. And then like one little thing at the very bottom of the scope about like taking that information and making recommendations to the town about potential zoning changes that we might explore further.
I mean, you could specify in the motion that the matching funds are for the study itself and do not endorse or whatever, any particular conclusions or zoning. I don't know what the right language is, but something to that effect where you just articulate within the motion that it's for the study and this is not intended to do what some people may misinterpret to do.
I don't know, my stomach churns with that just from worry because.
Yeah, I
someone's gonna
understand.
look at the request form. Right, and this is,
Well, there's also an approval
They're not-
form.
but they're not gonna-
The approval form is the important one, and that's what, I mean, every project that's approved, I send an approval form that reflects the language of the motion. And that's what's used to bound the scope of the ARPA project, not the request form, if that makes sense.
Okay,
And a lot of cases are the same, but in this case, we can be very specific on the approval form that says this is the scope of the project and this is not the scope of the project.
But doesn't the grant also fall into that? So to get the grant, you have to have a scope that it does include that. So isn't it kind of?
Right, which is why I'm shocked we got it because the scope very much was technical, hydrogeological, and very little about planning, zoning. The grant application.
so do you think if the approval of this did not include any of the zoning density, things like that, would that match with the grant? It was just a hydrological.
So the match is not required for the grant, and so I think however you want to match it, if you want to match it, is fine.
Great.
So we have the grant.
You do.
You don't necessarily need the,
As long as we take out the density, the zoning, this whole second paragraph, and
Rewrite
the,
the.
the last the last sentence.
The intent.
Yeah. We take that out. And the intent is we want to do a hydrogeological study so that we understand the public, the public health of our
Yeah.
subsurface water.
Yeah.
And the next step is the planning board or whoever else in town wants to use that data to then, propose zoning changes can do so and should, if they want, if they think that's.
If they want to go through that whole process and get the town on board with that, then that,
Yeah.
for sure.
That's part of the.
Right.
I'd be okay with that if we did that.
Okay, so,
Can I ask a couple questions?
sure, go ahead.
So what I'm hearing is the study itself only the 10,000 and I guess the other half of the match, the grant is for other things. It's not for the study.
The grant is 90,000. We've already gotten the 90,000.
Right. So
and-
that's doing what it's doing. This is 10,000 just to get a study done that was not covered under the grant or we didn't have
No.
money.
Just as background, when you submitted the grant, it helps your chances if you have matching funds. Or if you say you have
So we
matching-
put it,
Not,
okay.
I don't actually know that that's true in this case.
Right, so
Yeah.
this would only increase the budget of the study itself. It's not required. You have the money from the grant. This would just go to the same study. It would just give you a little more money to do the study.
Exactly.
Is that study going to be? I'm sorry, who was going?
It's okay.
Go ahead, David.
So how much is the hydrological piece of the study? Was that separately priced or is it just part of this whole thing? Like a consultant's doing a bunch of things, including the hydrological.
The consultant would primarily be doing the hydrogeological.
Okay, and those, you wouldn't have a hydrogeologist give you zoning advice, right? You wouldn't do that anyway.
Not unless they had that specific expertise in their firm. No.
Okay, so
specifically for the hydrogeology, not for anything else.
Right.
Okay, I mean, I'm fine with that. I guess the bigger question though still, which I've never really got an answer to, is the MS, whatever it's called, the MBTA study. The goal of it is to get rich towns like us or low density towns to be higher density. Right, and I've never understood if you don't, like 40B, if you tell them no, do they go away or what happens? Or you're not eligible for something? What's the impact when they come back and they say, okay, your study shows you that you can support more density here? And you say, well, we don't want to, or you reject it at the voting, at the ballot box. What happens to the town?
So I'll take that one. So the current governor, which can always change because it's politics, has a laser focus on housing. So the idea that the grants that we might be eligible for, which would help us financially with some of the other projects that we have going on in town, it is more likely than not that all of those grants are going to be eventually tied to this MBTA and housing crisis that's going on in the state. So previously, the only one that we might have even cared about was MassWorks, which allowed for STRAP grants, which would get you road funding. That went away in the last administration, and there was really no stick for a lot of the 40B and other zoning. Things can change, and it may be hyperbole, but I do believe that if we do want to be competitive for state and federal grants, then we will have to engage in this MBTA community zoning and even perhaps do it. And it might be
Right.
Anyway.
So I don't want to be Chicken Little here, but would the data from this, I agree with everything, like data is better than no data. I'm a data guy. So, but if the data supports that we could, or the data points, forget that it engages in zoning. The data can be interpreted later. And if people later say, well, this shows that Carlisle, you can support more dense housing, is that like a bad fact for us? Or it doesn't really matter? I mean, it could be the other way, like Julie said, it could show, endangered wetlands and don't mess with it kind of stuff. So I'd like to hear an opinion, I guess, from Julie or Ryan.
So planners plan. So Julie's gathering data for the town. In my opinion, you'll see in the financial forecast, capital modeling and budget planning that you're going to need tools to address some of the problems that this town will face because there's very little ability to grow revenue and to have new growth. So it may not be in my tenure here. I hope I'm here 10, 15 years, but in the next 10, 15 years, if you don't have this data or this planning, then you're not going to have a set of tools that you might need in order to combat some of the financial problems. That's my public administration answer. It's not a political answer. This is a conversation the community has to have, but I do believe it is my job to make sure that you know all the things that you could or could not have done in order to solve your problems.
Okay, all right, I agree with that. Thank you.
So how
I'm done.
in the areas that will be studied?
So I'm starting with a big list of properties that were identified, that are more than 10 acres, that were identified as developable within the master planning process. And making sure that includes all the different areas of town that were identified in the master plan itself, like, for potential changes. So like the town center, the other little commercial pockets along Bedford Road, as well as areas that were identified in the housing plan, right? And just looking at all of those and looking at environmental constraints. And I'm doing a whole analysis with the GIS mapping, my favorite thing, to kind of figure out like where there might be some possibility. And then I'm talking very closely with Tony Mariano of the Board of Health and the Board of Health's consultant. I'm working with other members of different boards and committees who have different vested interests in town and kind of trying to figure out what we might think would be, and then how, right? The approach. That's a big piece of this. So.
And how do those pieces of property overlay with anything that might be MBTA communities? Overlay, you had said that this was in support of that. Those properties overlay with what would be possible? Because the MBTA community has to be within a certain distance of a
No.
No, not
So
here.
in this town, we can do MBTA communities anywhere, everywhere, nowhere. Well, not nowhere, but anywhere, everywhere.
Because we don't have any.
Right, because we don't have any transit.
were think-
stations. Um,
We were thinking of your house, Nathan.
So the guidelines, like the guidelines have changed over time. So like, you know, if you have an understanding from a year ago, like it's very understandable that it might be different than the guidelines today. So I'm going to work and do an info session for the public about that, like about how MBTA communities actually, the guidelines actually apply to Carlisle. So
Okay.
stay tuned for that.
So we are starting to get pretty far behind times. I'm going to push you all.
So just to
Want
clarify,
to just clarify the motion then?
um, are you indicating that the request form will be amended to remove the second paragraph? Or are we just
Just the approval form would be amended
the
to,
approval? Right, I prefer not to amend the original request form.
No, I,
In the approval form, and let's just be specific about the scope of what's being approved. And if, again, any additional language about what's not included in that scope. And I'll take notes. Sure, I get it correct.
that's right on the fly. I mean, you know, for me anyway, this isn't just all about me, but, you know, it's a subsource, it's to study our subsource resources, the water and sewage, through the hydrogeologic study. Period.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody has anything to add or disagrees with that.
so I'm sorry, where were you reading from?
I actually,
Were you not reading?
Yeah.
Oh,
It-
sorry,
it
because
just
you were
could be
looking at the
that-
paper, so I'm
it-
trying to find this.
If I'm trying to interpret what Nathan, which I should not try to do, but I'm going to, it's that on the first paragraph under section 3 there, where it says grant funds would be used for technical assistance to gain specificity around the town's hydrogeologic conditions. I
period.
think
Period.
he's saying period, yeah.
Yes, okay,
And
and then strike
In the
everything else,
first- And
the
then the
second,
first paragraph, strike, the unknowns would become a justification for large lot development, an obstacle for increased density.
I would probably just include that one sentence, though, just
Yeah.
these funds will be used for technical assistance to gain, that could literally be the scope of the approval. I don't have to
Okay,
include
so
the
Okay.
other
the whole
language.
first.
Yeah, I'll just have that one sentence.
just that one sentence, okay. Fine,
I would be happy with.
good.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Oh, it's important. Yeah,
So
this brings awareness
do
now
we-
to this grant.
I think your motion said that's as amended. Well, go ahead
I
and
don't think
maybe
we
make a new
did say
motion.
that, it would just, it was as written here on the paper, but maybe we need to say,
Amended.
the select board approves 10,000 in ARPA matching funds to be used for the community planning grant for Carlisle subsurface hydrogeology study as defined in the discussion with the ARPA committee at our meeting tonight.
I will just add the sentence, grants funds will be used for technical assistance to gain specificity around the town's hydrogeologic conditions. Period.
Okay, well then, community planning grant for Carlisle subsurface hydrogeology study.
To include,
No,
to,
Period. Grant funds.
period. Okay, grant funds would be used for technical assistance to gain specificity around the town's hydrogeologic conditions. Okay.
period.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Arnold, I.
Brown eye.
Model I.
Reed, aye.
Snell, I.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good point, Nathan. Thank you.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
I want to change the order because the chief is here.
Yes. We're going to change the order of the budget report and the public safety building.
So our consultant's not here.
Our consultant's not here. 8:30, because they're not coming until 8:30. Okay, so so go ahead. You might have to interrupt your report at 8:30, but
Okay.
You haven't
Now,
gotten through everything.
is this a joint discussion with Finance Committee or no?
They decided they weren't going to be here tonight,
Okay.
but I will share it with them, and they have a lot of the highlights.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is meant to be a informational session about the first draft of the FY25 budget. We are here. This report to you will include some high-level analysis, where we stand currently with the budget, and it'll talk about revenues, expenses, the proposed capital plan, proposed warrant articles that received from departments and boards and committees, a debt plan as requested by the Finance Committee, a report on reserves, the potential tax impact of this proposed budget, not future versions of this budget, and then the resulting financial forecast. So what that will do to the financial forecast that was presented to you this fall. So overall, this budget, which is primarily made of department requests, is a 3.76% increase over FY24. So that's the total operating budget, and that does include school and all town departments. The financial management team predicts this is a 4.07% increase in the tax rate, and I will show you how we calculate that and what that would do and what types of conservatism and not is in that projection. Some of the conservative areas include healthcare projections, retirement projections, and then how the average tax bill would be calculated. So last year we said the average tax bill increase from the budget would be about 2.7%, and it ended up being 2.31. And that has a lot to do with valuations of non-single family homes, which you can't predict year to year. And I'll show you where that is in this report. So the source document for this, which I will send to everyone so that they can play with it, is a consolidation. If you look, I'm not going to show you the exact numbers. I'm just showing you the document right now. Along the bottom right, those tabs are every department request to the line item. So those are visible and available and will be published in future versions of this draft. And then inside this, we have levy analysis, the tax rate tool, revenues and expenses, and then all of the other sections that I said that I would get into. So first, I will start with available revenue. Surprising to all of you, there is not a lot of revenue for Carlisle. The town committed to using $225,000 in revenue in 2024 to offset additional spending, primarily from the regional school assessment or targeting the regional school assessment. This budget does recommend using free cash this year, primarily to offset increases in vocational education spending, but it does limit the one-time fund use to $100,000. This will offset some projected initial increases in the local school contribution, which would be a 3.75% increase, as we'll get to in the expenses. The regional school is at 2.51, but there are large operational increases offset by declining debt, which they do plan on adding more, which we'll get to into the warrant article discussion. This projection only includes a 2% increase in state aid and a 3.58% increase in local receipts. So this is less conservatism, as we've been talking about in local receipts. It's not a lot. It's a little bit less. The town has been, well, it's better to just show you. So I'll show you. So if we zoom in on FY23, there we go. Try and zoom in a lot.
Thank you.
So you have your estimates, which we're doing now in this budget job, and then what actually comes in. So if you look at FY23, we projected 875,000 in local receipts, and we brought in 1.047 million. The primary driver of that is one-time revenues that we didn't expect, but also a pretty consistent 5-year increase in motor vehicle excise tax increases. So this budget is recommending a $50,000 increase in that revenue projection, which makes these local receipts less conservative, but allows more spending power and is more accurate based off 5-year projections.
Can I stop you and just ask, you said that encompasses, besides the excise tax, that's a pretty significant change from what we got in. Was there another major component of that?
What was the significant change?
The revenue that we brought in, the unexpected, you said higher excise tax and I don't.
So if you
something else.
So if you look at here, and it's tiny, tiny, but there's about $110,000 in miscellaneous recurring and non-recurring, which are not items the state allows us to budget for. So some years they come in high like that, and some years they come in low. Last year, we received a lot of past tax bills coming in, big chunks of money that will not be realized again. So this will not be new revenue. That can be replaced by other items, but we're not sure because it's not budgeted. But if you look at budget versus actuals for the last few years, so the 5-year average, we have been bringing in $1 million and projecting 825,000. So I feel pretty comfortable raising this level, as I've been talking about for a year and a half now. Consultant just jumped in the room if you want to stop my talk,
Oh, well,
or we can keep going.
No, we should probably,
sorry.
I think we should let the
Well, I-
consultant give his pitch on the building.
Okay.
Because otherwise we'll be halfway in. We have the preamble. So
Yeah. Is that all right with you, Ryan? This is actually not a bad place to stop.
Sure. So Justin, we were just saying that since you jumped in, we might start early, if you're ready.
Sure. All right. I'm allowed to share.
Yeah, of course.
In a second.
It looks like I am.
So for anybody who's online and watching, we are pausing our 7:35 town administrator budget report, and we're jumping to the 8:30 public safety building renovation conceptual designs. We have our consultant here with us, and we have Chief Amendola in the room as well.
Great.
So just a quick intro while Justin gathers himself. So Justin Humphreys is the consultant we've been working with from TBA. If you remember, the board voted to continue working with TBA. They had worked on an initial couple drafts for us that you're all very aware of because you've been involved in the town for a long time. So this was approved as an ARPA funding to update this plan and present it to you as a conceptual design. So this does include the quote unquote Amendola amendments to the building, which we will highlight, and also includes a cost estimate. And just say Justin's been great to work with. He's been very accommodating and incorporated all the chief's comments. This is to present to you the idea and the cost estimates, and then for you to eventually decide what to do with it, but likely not a decision tonight.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. So again, my name is Justin Humphreys. I'm principal of TBA Architects. We have reprised the police station work that we started, and I think it's what we've configured now has done a great deal of improvement to what was our original goal of certain things to achieve accreditation, but have made even greater strides, I think, in making the police station a community space. And so that's what I'll go through. So as a way of orientation, on the left of the image is the existing building in sort of a light beige, and then we've got a series of interventions that are sort of in the brownish orange color to add on to the building. And we have a series of sort of extensive renovations, and then some finishes and furniture upgrades in the rest of the building. So there are 3 floors to the building right now. There's the basement or ground floor plan level, which has the lockup, the locker rooms, the training or exercise room currently. The first floor has a conference room, administrative office spaces, and the dispatch center. And the second floor is more administrative space, a training room now, and the detectives suite. So as we go through the plans, you'll see there's a light gray, which is indicative of the extensive renovation areas, and then the sort of bluish color, which is furniture and finishes, and then the orangish color that you'll see is additions and a new storage and garage building. So starting with the ground floor, and this one mostly tackling the issues of accreditation. Currently, the vehicle sally port is in the building. It's in this sort of top left of the gray area, and it's used primarily for storage right now, as well as bringing detainees in and getting them into the cells. And then to the right of that, there are two locker rooms, the men's and women's locker room. To the right of that is the exercise room. And currently, there is a set of stairs at the front of the building or on the street end of the building that goes up through all levels in a sort of circuitous way. They're not neatly stacked like this stair at the back. So what we're doing here to tackle the needs is adding a new vehicle sally port out the back of the building, taking over the existing sally port to create an appropriate booking area. You need a handicap cell. You also need to create separation. If there are men and women at the same time detained, they have to be visually and audibly separated. Same with if you have any juveniles as well. And you do need a handicap accessible cell. So creating this one area opposite side of the booking from the two existing cells get you all of those things and quite a bit of flexibility. The two existing cells, there's a couple of things that we're going to tackle. The doors need to be addressed, and there are concerns with the current lavatory fixtures in there that need to be upgraded to new ones that have a very basic profile that doesn't allow for any self-harm. We'll also be tackling ventilation. HVAC will be tackled throughout the building. Moving to the right of the booking area, we'll create an armory. And then to the right of that, and this is one of the new things since last, is to have a look at the men's and women's locker rooms and create two fully accessible men's and women's room with with equity in the facilities and in access. So we've done that and created two locker rooms, the men's room with space for 17 full-sized lockers and bench, the women's room with 8 full-sized lockers and bench, and again, accessible showers. The men's gets 2 showers, one of them accessible, one of them not. The exercise room essentially moves about 4 feet to the right of where it is now in order to make the room to expand the men's and women's locker rooms. And that space is found by removing the front stair in the building. This is a business use building. Police station is a business use building. We have access out of the building at multiple points, and we are allowed to create a building that has a single staircase, which will be adding an egress door from to be able to get out from both the from all 3 levels. As we move up to the first floor, starting this time on the right at the front of the building, this is where the majority of the changes are, and this is where we make I think great strides in creating a welcoming and a truly functional community space by again finding quite a bit of space by removing the L-shaped stair and the straight run stair that go both up and down currently. And then essentially what we do is we create a community / training room. So the room that is currently on the 2nd floor, which is only reached if the public needs to go up there, you have to go past the secure perimeter and be accompanied in order to get there. This brings it down to the 1st level, which has vision from the dispatch area and right off of a lobby. We have an accessible toilet room that goes as well. And then we create a secure perimeter, a bit of a vestibule here which allows for access to an interview room that can be used for the public to be able to talk with people who are not necessarily detainees, or also other members of the public. Jumping back to the training room again, I should have mentioned it's suitable for at least 30 people is what we've arranged. We're envisioning flexible tables that allow for different arrangements in rows, in groups, large tables, and we create a storage room to be able to house some of that, and a fully mediated front wall on that room. As we move to the left, there are 3 offices currently in a row here. We're going to combine 2 of them in order to create a sergeant's office. And then the rest of this area is all replacement of flooring, some painting, and furnishings to shift people around in those spaces. At the bottom in the orange here is something that we wanted to consider, the possibility of creating a fully enclosed new entry to the building that can be accessed from the parking level, where you would come inside, be at a landing, and then you could either take a lift up to the first floor or go up the stairs to the first floor. All of this enclosed, all of this visible from the dispatch area, and would allow us to remove the ramp that has been installed, and would also alleviate what were the past concerns of maintaining a lift at the exterior of the building. If this wasn't done, it is possible still to get the door into the egress stair. It comes out, it needs to swing, and we need to sort of bring a walkway down alongside in between the building and the handicap ramp in order to do that. So you'll see we've got a couple elevations that show this entrance, where we hold on to the character of the portico that is outside of the building right now. And when we go up to the second floor, what happens is, with moving some of the sergeant space and the training space down to the first floor, it gives the ability to open up the entire area that is right now, most of it, the second floor is under sloping, sloping ceiling. It's up in the roof, but this allows for a sizable area that can accommodate at least 10 people in it, and a bit of a conference space. And then we clean up some of the closet and storage areas that right now are used for some uniform storage and armory that get relocated to other places in the building. The other component is, again, as I said, the current sally port and other areas of the building are not used for their intended function. They're used for storage right now, and there is no place for bulk or large evidence storage items. So the proposal is to build a small garage building outside that allows for storage, allows for potentially vehicles to be parked in as a way of not taking over space that vehicles are currently parked in. And then on the elevation, as I said up here on the top left, is to add the enclosed entry accessed from the parking level. We would, as I said, hold on to the character of the portico that is now there now. And so what you're seeing is the edge of this building doesn't come out any further than the portico and the stair does currently. And so we would create a front entrance essentially there, go in, and then from the side you would see this sort of columned structure. The only other changes to the exterior are the new door that comes out of the staircase, and then the single-story sally port at the back. So we have taken this schematic design, revised schematic design, coupled it with all of the proposed HVAC, electrical, security upgrades that we were previously doing, and asked AM Fogarty to work up a cost estimate, which I believe you have it has a full breakdown to it. This is a summary of it. And what they tell us is that the base work, what we were calling the base work, which is really the renovations and expansion, with the exception of the main entrance, to the existing building and the new storage building, all told, direct cost of a little over 2.2 million, with all of the markups of general conditions, administration, bonds, and some design contingency still in there because we're at a schematic level with these series of changes, and then some escalation thinking if we are potentially to bid this in the late spring of next year, comes to a bit over 2.9 million for that. And then we had asked them to price the main entry as a sort of alternate, something that could be considered. That comes in at $282,000. So if all of this was to be done, we're right about 3.2 million for all of this work. And I think that's the end of my slides anyway.
Justin, quick question for you. So the design contingency, does that replace the costs that we discussed prior to this conceptual design for your cost for constructions, et cetera? Or is that
no, what that is as I said, the redesign work that we've done is at a schematic level. So there's certain things that, as we continue to develop the design, there may be additional things we want to include, or there may be things that we want to change. And so that is to cover construction costs of whatever those changes might be at that time. It's not a construction contingency. So what's not in here, and at this level, I can just tell you what we would recommend is that anything that you go out for, that you would have at a minimum 5% of a construction contingency for unforeseen things that you may come across in, for example, when we dig up the parking lot out back and begin to put in new systems for septic, and when we start to take apart walls and we find possibly a column or something that needs to be dealt with. So this design contingency is assuming that we still have more things to consider as we proceed with the design and before we go to bid. It's not my fee. So I have given you, a complete fee estimate, all the way through, assuming that, this level of scope is what's approved.
Justin, a quick question just on the section that says alternates for main entry.
Yep.
So is that the new entrance you were describing with the new stairwell? Is that what that is?
No, that's the new front entrance with turning the current stair that's under a porch into an enclosed space.
Okay.
Removing the ramp and creating a new stair and lift inside the building. So it's the area that on this plan it shows in green. I should have kept colors the same, but it is, as I jump back, it's this area in orange. The new door out of the egress stair, that is included in the base renovation and expansion scope.
And it's listed that way as an alternate because is that suggesting that while this might be something that would be desirable and improve things, it's not critical to the accreditation process, or it's something that could be left out, I guess, of the final plan?
Yes, in that and I think when we first sort of started thinking about this, there was some concerns with the ramp that that was put in there. But with the ramp that you have there now, you do have an accessible entrance to the public, and so that can remain. It does create a sort of tight slot where we would still be able to get the door out of this egress stair. We would have to swing it the other way and then walk along the building between the building and the ramp, to get around or down to the lower parking area.
Thank you.
Mhm.
How much did we just spend on that ramp? So half of what is being projected here.
And we're not finished. We need to do, the historic commission came and suggested that there were some things that weren't done correctly. And so we need to do some additional work on the ramp to make it comply with.
Unless it's temporary.
Right. And I think that might be a conversation going forward, but, as to how to approach this and what the appetite is for not the board, but the town, what we think would be best for the town to support here, whether we should redo the ramp or not.
And how much might it cost to get it in compliance with historical commission?
Well, I think it's relatively minor.
It's being discussed at the MFC currently. I asked them to pause it at the last meeting and they did, pending this report. I knew this was coming. So the suggestions range from plantings to a permanent constructed object to block the view. So that it is quite a range in cost, but I don't think the end product would be significant. And plantings aren't really being recommended by the MFC because they don't think they would live.
But we could do this project without this, and then do this when we need to replace the ramp.
Yeah,
Someday.
of course, then it'll
Like,
cost.
we just installed the ramp.
I know.
I hate to have abandoned costs.
And that cost us, what was this, 300?
282, I think.
We got an elevator in there.
282, so it cost us a half of what this is. We've already
Right.
buried.
There was an exterior elevator that was not functioning correctly. And so as an alternative, we decided, I wasn't involved in it. Well, maybe I was. You were decided, I just implemented it, but to build a ramp.
That's right. So that's so the public can have access. Is
Correct.
there an ADA thing about, I mean, presumably you've got physical tests that would make, if a candidate can't handle stairs, they can't be a police officer, I imagine, right?
Yeah, this
Yes,
was,
correct. Yeah.
So you don't need an elevator like for your people to go up and down.
No, that would just be for general access.
Justin, I have a question. I have a fire code question because you're taking out a staircase, right? And
Yeah.
don't you have to have 2 points of egress? You kind of said you didn't quite catch that.
So as a business use, you with the occupancy that this building has, you can get away with a single point of egress, with the exception of the second floor, which the second floor has a much lower occupant load up here because it's all under the eaves. With the exception of this second floor, the other floors all have 2 ways out.
Right. Now, I'm referring to the second floor specifically though, because
Yeah.
what if they're up there and then the stairwell's blocked because of fire? What happens? They jump out the window?
there's no window. There are no windows up there.
So I think, normally, it's not general practice that we would normally say, let's remove a stair or let's remove a means of egress. The current stair that's in there does not go directly outside. You have to travel through spaces in order to get to it, which also is not allowed by code to have to go through multiple spaces in order to get to an egress stair. And they all exit into the lobby. And so While there is two ways down from that second floor, it still brings you down still inside the building, doesn't bring you directly out of the building. So we normally wouldn't, recommend this, but this is a very inefficient stair. This is a very small building, and the benefits that you get for taking over that space are quite extensive. To go from, the current.
Back to the second floor plan
Show us the second.
again, please.
Sure.
There is one window in that, there's only
Uh-huh.
one window in that whole floor.
There's,
That's
yeah.
where the people will, except for
jump out.
what,
They would
the
punch
people in the break room could go down the stairs, but so I would just like to see it be an escape, a big enough window to be able to escape, and one that opens wide enough and they could have a ladder and,
Like a fire escape.
yeah, fire escape.
Mhm.
Would they, it could just be just a ladder that you flip out. the window.
They'll design it, but
Well,
yeah, it should be like,
But the thing is that the window has to be big enough.
yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I ask that at some point we open it up to public comment as well? Because with the town meeting, we did say that we would, have people involved in this process, and I think it would be helpful.
And I
know there are a
I
few.
have seen some chat, it seems that there's some chatting going on. So, if there are people, Deborah Bentley, I see a hand up. Deborah?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, Justin. I just want to compliment you on managing to get 2 pints into a pint pot. But there is some issues I have. The one is that we don't have any windows. Can we not have more windows in the gable ends of the second floor office space? Because, windows are important for wellness as well as egress.
Mhm.
And we pay our police quite well, and it'd be nice to keep them healthy. That would be my comment. And the other things are much more to do with sustainability, about EV charging, PV. Is it available? Can we put PV on the roof of the south side where it's not really seen from the road? So the historic district might agree to it. Those are the sort of things. That just really, really tweaking, as you say, it's design development. It's not necessary in conceptual design, but I think we need to look at the long-term thing of environmental sustainability and wellness. And can we have heat pumps, please? That would be the other thing, rather than at the moment it's saying we're going to have the gas continue. And is it possible to have heat pumps now rather than and gas off fossil fuel?
In general, I wondered if you could speak to what is in here that is sort of trying to be more sustainable. I couldn't tell from the details in terms of what's been included around heating, toilets, low water, whatever.
Yeah, so I guess because we were, and this is going back 3 years ago, right? We were essentially having to rework the entire heating and ventilation air conditioning system throughout. So we could certainly have a look at alternates at this point. All of the new plumbing fixtures have to be low flow and low flush, as a basic requirement. So that'll certainly be in there. And we can certainly have touchless and eye sensor operation all of those. We're not really touching the exterior of the building. We were limited before. Certainly in the areas that we're going to be renovating heavily, we would be asked to improve the insulation in the walls everywhere throughout that. That's definitely a level of alteration that would require that. Same with, we can look at insulation that is in the attic above the open office area at that second floor as well. Um, I
Sorry.
don't know about PV. There's not a huge amount of area on these roofs, and I do know, as nice as it may be, and we'd always say try to go for it. I know that historic would certainly have some say over that.
You know, not by state law.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I could, so during the goals and scoping of this project, the primary goals were to meet accreditation, to meet the retention and needs of our police officer, safety of our police officer, and to minimize costs. So to be fair to Justin, he was not asked to create a multitude of sustainable options during the goals. Not that that's not important and that I don't support that. I don't want that to be out there, but I think what's before the board to try and help shape the conversation is this project something that's it's even being considered to be doable, and is that time frame the Springtown meeting or the Fall Town meeting? Because I do think that I would recommend to you, if you do want to move forward with something like this with obvious tweaks, that we don't focus on the small details today, but whether or not we're going to pursue this, and then you would put together a building committee or a guiding committee that would help finalize the design and costs. Because I think we get very excited when we see the design and we want to change the furniture around, but really that's not really useful unless the project is going to move forward in some form. Otherwise, we're rearranging a project that might not happen.
Yeah, I don't think, though, I think the idea of asking about sustainability, though, is important at this point, because I think that will also help determine if some people in town will say, this is making it a much more sustainable, we're investing in sustainability, and some of this is towards that. I think that will possibly need to be in that discussion. So I understand you didn't put it in the scope, but I don't think it's inappropriate to ask the question at this point.
You didn't put it in the scope. That wasn't me.
It was our scope.
We didn't put it in the scope.
We can, I don't want to parse.
But now that we have a
Sorry.
ballpark figure, which I see the detail, it's very, impressive. I recall that when Adams was here, he gave us kind of a rule of thumb, right? I mean, like I seem to recall like 25%. I mean, there's some broad metric of the cost of making any new building or any renovated building, zero.
Square foot cost or?
Well, that's harder because this is you notice the square foot here is like 300 something. I mean, these are very expensive things to do because of the specialized nature of municipal. But Eric had I don't remember what it is, but a broad rule of thumb. Like if we were to we want it sustainable and give them the mission to go back and, tweak that on 3 million, it might be, 800,000. I mean, I don't know that, but we need to embrace the cost of doing that as well as the mission.
Yeah, I think that our goal here was to have a scope, and we already increased the scope a little bit based upon Chief Amendola's recommendations. Our goal was to actually move forward on something and make a decision and move forward. I think I think we certainly could say, hey, what might it take to add some windows? That doesn't seem like a really big thing, but putting photovoltaics on the roof or electric charger could absolutely come at some other time. It doesn't have to happen right now, but it could make this cost more anyway. So I to answer your question, Ryan, I'm not sure I support the new front because we just spent half that money on a new ramp. But if you round this up by $95, I would support like a $3 million target.
Well, first of all, I see Christina's hand is also up, but I just want to also say one thing is I did hear, though, Justin say that in the more highly renovated areas, there will be some extra sustainability introduced. Yes. So the answer to the question is yes, it's maybe not, totally, solid insulation added everywhere, but some of it will certainly be better than it was. So, and
going back and
part of this,
25% to redo the entire building, I think would kill the project.
I agree with you, but the answer, there was some, there's going to be some benefits, sustainable benefits, just from, because you're no longer grandfathered and you have to introduce these things when you do things. So
Right.
it's a step forward, no matter what. I see Justin he's, okay.
Yep.
Let me ask Christina, she has her hand up.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to point out, oftentimes it ends up being less of a cost to include options when the work is being done, when reconstruction and stuff is being done, as opposed to going back and doing it later. And also wanted to point out that there might be some additional upfront cost by implementing some sustainable elements in the building, but it can end up saving money down the road over time. And since the opportunity has come up, I know this is getting a little more detailed, but another sustainable thing to possibly consider is in the choice of actual materials, such as type of flooring, or carpeting and so forth. And so I know that that's a little soon to be going that detailed, but just I wanted to put it out there as something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric?
Just a very quick question, really clarification. I know there's a lot of ducting redesign. Is there the physical plant that for heating, is that renewed or reused? For using?
It's new. The majority of it is new.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Have you, sorry, after the last go round, we did do some reducting and some has that been scoped, or did you use the old plans?
We use the old plans for the mechanical
So
work.
some of that might have already been done.
Yep, good. So if there's some of that reducting, is that at the second floor level? Yeah, okay, so good. That would help for sure.
That's okay. So that wasn't re-inventoried. Okay.
What are you looking for from us?
Well, a sense of whether we support moving ahead in some form with this relative ballpark number.
When Julie presented this, the idea was to bring you a properly estimated conceptual design to decide whether or not you wanted to move forward. We do highly recommend, given community conversations, that if you do move forward, that you put together a building committee that can help entertain some of these ideas and help the community have input in this project. So is this a relative design that you want to move forward with? How do you want us to move it forward in your time frame? So if it's town meeting, that's quick. If it's the fall, that's usually not financial. If it's next year, you can add 10% to that cost. I guarantee it.
Oh, yeah.
So I personally would support putting together a committee, shooting for the Springtown meeting and not going over 3 million.
29, going for the 2,900, 22,919 number.
Rounding.
Yeah, okay. No, that's good. No, I'm just trying to clarify.
And I guess I support that. Let me ask Justin a question. So let's say we decide that that's what we want to do. I guess you guys would do like definitive drawings and then the estimators would have to go back through those to get a higher fidelity quote. What would need to be done between now and a vote at a town meeting, and can that be done, in the 3 or 4 months we have to get it done?
And where does the money come from?
Well, I think those are
That's not
questions
his,
for Ryan.
let's ask, but we had, just answer that part, Justin, not the money.
So to get you an even more solid number to go to town meeting with, then we would want to proceed ultimately through construction documents and have a construction document set, which in public bidding is essentially that's the set that would go out to be bid. And we would have that re-estimated by these folks, incorporating all of the things that we find and the changes. So when I had talked a couple of months ago with the entire team about doing this and was putting together a proposal for you. Everybody felt that the time frame would work, that if we had a go-ahead sometime in December or early January, that we could proceed through construction documents and be able to get an estimate in time for your Springtown meeting.
I guess I'm going to ask, why would we bother with an estimate? Why don't we, if we have construction documents, why wouldn't we just go out for bid? And then we know exactly how much it would cost.
You have to have the money allocated in order to go out to bid.
A waste of their time.
It's always a catch-22 though.
It is. We have had projects in which we've gone out to bid. Bidders, need to hold their price for 30 days. So if the sort of timing could be done such that you substitute the number at town meeting for the actual bid number, and then could, proceed towards a contract. Because that money, anything that you approve at Springtown meeting, that money is not available necessarily until July 1st, right? I guess depending on how you fund it.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
Well, no,
you can make it available.
with free cash or,
Let me look into
Yeah.
that because we don't have enough.
But to your point, Justin, I mean, would we have fewer people bidding if it was prospective? In other words, they have to bid it prior to knowing whether the town will approve the money?
Yeah, they don't like that.
Yeah, so I mean, we may be pound, penny wise pound foolish, saving that step and having fewer people bid on the project because they don't like the uncertainty.
but we've also had a lot of experience with estimators gone out to town meeting and then the bids came in so much higher.
Yeah.
We had to wait until the next town meeting.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, what's the fidelity, would you say? Let's pretend that this quote we have here with the detail was the result of an estimator looking at construction drawings. How close to true fidelity would that end up being? You've got contingency and all that other stuff in there.
Yeah. I mean, my experience with these folks has been that they are close. They generally shoot to have their estimates slightly above where the bids come in. They don't want to come in under.
Yeah.
But and I think yeah.
As well.
I mean,
And everything came.
having just gone through a big renovation and with a guy like that, I looked at the list. I mean, I can't say the dollars, but the detail was pretty good, I thought.
There was a lot of detail, including handrails, grab rails and
Paper folders.
Yes.
Well, I think, this estimate, we, like I said, we have the benefit of a completed construction document set, which they worked with. And, I put it to them and worked with them a bit on interpolating, with the revised layout of the building, sort of taking those systems and doing what was necessary. So, on the systems front, we have a highly developed set of documents that they were able to work with, which is why they were able to put together an estimate, like this. And so to have an architectural set that matches that in time for them to do an estimate for town meeting is going to give you that much greater level of fidelity.
I would say let's put together a committee and let's move forward and shoot for spring.
We didn't answer the second question that you posed, Nathan.
We already allocated the money to do this next step.
No, so the next design to get us through construction documents is approximately 110,000 that we've not appropriated. So that would need to come from
And that's part of this.
before, if you're going to do it before town meeting, it would have to come from ARPA.
And is that money available? Uh-huh.
Is that incorporated into this cost?
No.
So we're at 3.1 million.
Right, the suggestion to do design and build was based on that, the availability of funding before town meeting. However, if you wanted to invest in the town meeting vote, the way you're describing, then ARPA is an option.
Well, the delay costs, as you say, if it's 10% a year, which is not unreasonable, that's 300,000. So again, it's probably not a bad use of money.
So if you guys want to do that, I would suggest two motions. One would be to authorize the expenditure of ARPA funds for the, not to exceed or whatever, and setting up the committee and
Authorizing the
creation of the committee.
But we could get going, because we're not gonna, we're gonna get input from townspeople, right? Before we really start moving on this design. So that we're not excluding Scott. Would we say, let's put this committee together as soon as possible and start moving forward and have ARPA committee come in next week and propose the $100,000 so that we're still going through the same process and we're not cutting that off.
It's fine. Mind you, okay. The ARPA has been recently recommending expenditures of. There was a point where we said, please put aside a certain amount of money for us, to spend on various things. And so I would say that 100,000 is ours
Coming out of that.
and not for necessarily for ARPA to be recommending, but you can, it's a kind of a complicated. Yeah, okay, that's
Kind of a
fine.
process person.
Yeah, well, I'm saying that I do think that we did follow the process and ARPA will most likely rubber stamp it to say, well, that's the select board's money that they need to talk about and decide whether they want to spend or not for us to recommend. That's what I'm trying to say. That was the understanding.
Just one, I guess, comment. So thinking about the timing on this, the building committee would need to make any changes to this set of documents that we have here fairly quickly, right? Because that building committee has to decide what it is that we're asking then somebody to give us an estimate on. Is that correct?
I'd ask Justin how long that would take. Like, when do they need decision points on that? Do you have a sense of that?
So I think the biggest things really are we need to go back through planning board, conservation commission. If we're not changing the exterior of the building, it sounded like we didn't have to go back before historic. We just need to notify them that we're not changing things from before, because we have a letter of appropriateness. So it's working through those meetings, which don't necessarily, I think, require the building committee to certainly keep them notified of it, but a lot of the stuff that has to be done in terms of septic and drainage and all of this stuff is regulated beyond anybody's control. It's putting it together, so that's in the hands of the civil. As far as the design goes, I think it would make sense. I don't have a good answer for timing on things. I think what would make sense is to put that committee together and then establish a series of meetings just to make sure that stuff is getting done.
I have a process question too, or more of a comment. I was involved in the fire station selection committee for when we were talking about the design or the engineering. And one of the things that came out of that I noticed is, happens with all committees, is everybody is putting in their own comments and has their own ideas of what they may want. And I can see the building committee with this, and it, as it should be, that, you have lots of different people representing different interests that they may want, whether it's, design elements of this, so architectural, or if it's, from some of the initiatives for energy conservation or other things. And they're all going to get woven in there. But I think it would be helpful, at least in seeing how that played out in my experience, to have this board determine the amount that we're willing to support so that they can work within sort of a budget of that rather than,
I thought
that's
I
what
heard that
Nathan,
Nathan's
right, that's what
motion.
Nathan and, well, I don't know if it was a motion or. Right.
Just, well, put it
But I think that that's really important for
Mhm.
this whole project.
Well, and also I think they need a time constraint, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Right.
to, again, from a process standpoint, we can form the committee, then we have to go recruit members or ask for volunteers and get them on, it's Christmas and blah, 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 blah. So we're going to be, it's going to be into January when we get these guys rolling. We can, correct me if I'm wrong, put a placeholder warrant without the dollar amount, right? So we really have until almost the night before. I mean, we have,
March.
no, I think we have longer than March, but it's not a ton of time, right? So the committee would probably really have the back half of January, February. Yeah, they'd have 10 weeks or something like that to get it all, not just their work, but also TBA's work, right? So we would have to back them into a calendar window, I think, to make
Yeah,
decisions.
also to have that amount be available early enough that people would be able to think about it
Yeah.
at a town meeting, right? But what if we just change the order a little bit, and I'm just throwing something out here? What if what we start doing right away is we start creating a building implementation committee? And then we, or Justin or somebody has a couple of meetings where people can come and take a look at the design and give, but it's not, that's very quick. It's very soon that we do that. People can provide their input, but they're not the ones. It's not like, okay, so now this is what we're going to do. It's kind of like the charrettes that we did for
Right.
the golf property, right? It's like, okay, come and give it, but then, we're gonna work with TBA, we being Ryan, to figure out really what makes sense, and then we'll finalize it. But the committee that we're putting together would be kind of a committee that would be more of an implementation committee.
And there'd be you're suggesting a public process
Public
that
input
is open, right, to anybody and would
over
be
the next, like, I think
couple of-
Justin said that if we
right.
got started sometime in January, so it would have to be between now and sometime in January, where there are a couple of public sessions.
right.
And then we can, now we've gotten that input and we can move forward. And we're not asking a committee to get up to speed. And I also have the worry that we put together a committee and, it might, it just might change a lot.
right. And I think we need to direct that relative to the budget of this project. is
Right.
my opinion.
So we could hold those public sessions, or we could ask Ryan to hold those public sessions and we just attend them.
I like that idea of the committee being an implementation committee as opposed to the
Design committee.
design committee.
Because it's
Yeah,
been designed.
right.
yeah, I agree. It has been designed. And there might be some minor tweaks from the input, but we don't want it, we do not want to start at square
Right.
one, and a
We don't want to
committee
look at it.
might think that was their job.
Yeah.
Good thinking. Good. I'm glad you.
Ryan, what do you think about that?
Great.
Yeah.
So we want to put together a building implementation committee, which means we're really looking for particular specialties, right? People who know this.
Relatively small. We can go back to our bylaw and look at what is suggested in there.
And
Probably the building. But this is different.
This is different. This is not a building committee.
well, yeah, there is a bit, in the bylaws, there's a building committee, but it's not in existence now. So we would have to go out. I think it's meant that it would be put into existence whenever we were doing a building project. So we need to do that. And so we have a couple months to do that. And then we ask the ARPA committee, hey, what do you think about using this $100,000 or whatever the amount is? And we plan these public sessions.
Just want to understand that because it sounds like you want to have a design committee and the building.
No, he doesn't want to do that.
I want public input on this design so that we can hear it and incorporate those things that make sense. From a cost perspective. You know, like the last part.
No, I'm trying to understand how it's going to work and I want it to be an efficient, effective process.
I'm just trying to think of how can we get the input on the design now rather than getting the input during town meeting.
So I've heard that next week I need to bring you a initial scope of a building committee, not to vote on, but to understand that we would advertise for folks who are interested in serving on a police department renovation building committee. We would establish 2 meetings in January or maybe even early February that are off select board cycle to just talk about this project and receive public input. And then that building committee would then take that input and work with staff and TBA to implement for a final warrant article that's available in April.
If that timing works, yes.
Then the committee would guide the project through construction and payment.
So we'll never use the building committee.
Well, that is a building
Never.
committee. So building committee, it's pretty nebulous, so you can create it with its purpose. So you would scope the building committee to do this work.
To implement what we've designed.
And it could very well, it could be that the people that are on this first committee do the process that takes it up through town meeting. You know, I'm saying, and then, but it could be then it gets approved and we're going ahead with it. And some people could drop off and some new people could join for the actual construction and, you know, of the final product.
So instead of creating the final design, they're finalizing the design and shepherding it.
Now, there's an OPM in there, right? At some point, Justin? When do we get an OPM and doesn't they do that work, a lot of that work?
That's up to you. There's no requirement that you have an OPM on this project. The building committee can act as your OPM.
Costs aren't big enough.
But I mean, who's chasing these vendors to make,
So this would go out, right now, this would be proposed as a design bid build.
Okay, so
system.
whoever
So
you choose.
we would go out to bid for a general contractor and the general contractor is responsible
Got
for.
it. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right.
I think that makes sense.
Go.
Do we need a motion or can we,
No.
we're in agreement, I think,
We're in
right?
agreement.
On what we're doing?
All right, great.
But we don't have a dollar amount. Are we setting that at 3?
We said in that. I think
Why don't
should-
we reconfirm that at the next meeting? But
Yeah.
that sounds like that's
Well,
where we are at the moment.
3.019 right now. Because we're already spending 100, but yes. 2.919.
Just give them
Round it to
2.9.
Yeah, around.
I give them 2.9 and let them figure out where they find about 20,000.
Well,
I don't.
Plus the 100,000, we're gonna be asking ARPA for.
300, yeah.
But it's
We're in
not-
the-
I don't wanna lose track of
Anyway.
the-
It's not
it's more.
free.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep,
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Thank you, Justin. That was
Okay,
great.
for you.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
everything.
It's your building.
Late night.
No, I know. Aside, Justin was great to work with. I'm very pleased to see the plans, the way they came out, and Ryan as well. So yeah, thank you very much. And by the way, just for a record, there is 2 windows on the break side of the building. So
those were not on the drawing, so.
yes.
We're gonna practice.
That'll be a
Make
trick.
sure we get all of that correct.
Well, there's a Sally port right under that, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Maybe jump down the roof, roll off.
rock and roll.
That's right.
Okay.
actually, that's where they're gonna put the barbecue and the outdoor furniture
In the pool.
on the top of the.
It's all in the contingency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay. So let's go back to our budget report.
So
Sorry.
I have one more pretty heavy topic to discuss with you. So the fire department renovation DSC finalized a list of 4 consultants, and then per your policy and the policy that's really dictated by the state, it is my job to negotiate with 1, 2, 3, 4 to make sure that that we're getting the design we need, and then bring that to you for a final decision, my recommendation. So in discussing with the first consultant selected, it appears as though the cost for this type of building is about $1,000 a square foot. The programming proposed, which is still undecided, not tied to goals or nebulous, was 20,000. So the estimate for potential fire department renovation was 20 million. So if you cut that programming in half, or 10,000 square feet, you're getting 10 million. And from my conversations with the designers, what's being proposed would be a $10 to $20 million renovation design. So in conversations that I've had with you, with other members of the community, that is higher than what was expected, I think, in terms of what we were hoping to build, in terms of all the buildings that need to get done. So what I need to know is, should I be going back to the consultant and saying that there is a, and I don't think we're going to get to this tonight because it's a long discussion, but is there a cap or a not to exceed? And then I would like to ask the designer whether or not they are interested in doing that project, because I don't want a designer to bring you something that you're just going to throw out because of cost. So I've identified a need to see if there's a cap or some type of refinement of cost that you're willing to do, so that we can really bring you the recommendation that you need.
Would there be a way that we could, so yes, there's a cap, but I don't know what it is because I don't know the impact on the budget. So you have the new budget. Is there in one of our sessions, could we sit there and put in the different numbers and see what the impact is and decide based upon what we think the increase would be?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm really asking you is, kind of telling you, is you need to decide a cap, because I do think you would get a design that would proverbially blow your mind, and then we'd be stuck in a spot where you'd be trying to cut this and that.
Right.
And I don't think that's very useful
No.
Yeah.
for whatever it's going to cost to pay for that design. So it's, to be fair to the designers, the process in the fire department that needs this done is as much as the police department. We need to have another goal session.
Okay.
And I'll tell all the designers that we're pausing, and then I'll get back to them.
Makes sense.
Because we all have heart attacks.
Yeah, and a lot of nodding. So
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's probably.
Gulp, 20 million.
Gulp, yeah.
Jeez. Put in the design.
All right, where was I?
You were at the revenues,
Spending.
and you just finished revenues, and how you got to how you did some of your estimates, and which ones were conservative and which ones you've kind of beefed up.
This isn't the only time you'll see this, so I will do it justice, but I won't keep you here all night. Okay, so then after you discuss revenue, which total is down 1% from last year because of the use of free cash in FY23. So the total overall revenue for this budget is decreased by 1%, not increased by 2.5%. That's the summary for revenue. On the expense side, this is a 3.76% increase in town spending. So I did not adjust department budgets. I did speak with departments where I thought the requests were out of line with expectation, and all the departments came in to at least a level services budget. Whether or not cuts are made at this point, you can either direct me to identify some cuts, make your own cuts, or do some type of process if there's cuts in the cards. So the highlights for the expenses include 3.75% increase for the Carlisle Public Schools. This does include $10,000 as discussed yesterday for the new facilities director. So some of that is quote unquote town money. 2.51% increase for CCRHS has a 3.57% increase in their operating budget and a decrease in our debt as debt continues to fall. 40% increase in vocational spending. So we had even though it was very unlikely, we had a student move into town who was already in that school, and we have a requirement to pay for their education and must and should. This does include the step increases for non-union, all contractually obligated increases, and a projected 2% town-wide COLA with no new town positions added. It does include $15,000 for a 1% increase in health insurance splits, continued investment in Board of Health inspection staffing, appropriating funds for Cranberry Bog maintenance in the CONSCOM budget, and a 12% health increase projected, which might actually be low, sadly. The 10% for retirement, I was able to confirm today that it is not 10%, that this budget has actually already seen $60,000 in relief. So these numbers will go down. As I said, that number was conservative. In terms of the capital plan.
Just a quick question. Can you tell me what continued investment in Board of Health inspection staffing means?
Sure. So they would like to add funding to do the school inspections for food inspection services.
Who does them now?
It used to be Chris Guines, and she's not here anymore, so they would add a consultant to do these inspections.
They have a new employee. Would there be any discussion about training and certification of that employee so that we wouldn't have that extra expense?
I didn't get into staffing with the Board of Health. I've gone down that road.
Let me ask you then more broadly. The FinCom in its marathon sessions will be wire brushing these anyway.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
So all that stuff will come up.
So then the capital plan. So you saw a version of the capital plan, and I can project it in the capital planning process and also the financial forecasting. So this year's request is 2.1 million. We took out the contingency because we're closer to known cost. The changes to this year's plan include the MFC and the Library Board of Trustees moving $150,000 in projects, the HVAC coil project and the mechanical room expansion into FY25 to match the hopeful renovation project. So they want to do it at the same time, as there might be some cost efficiency. The police department also updated their cyclical cruiser replacement because of increased costs. There's a $25,000 increase for a total cost of $145,000 for 2 cruisers. The communications department added a $35,000 UPS replacement for end of life replacement of this IT equipment. And we have asked them to look into their IT to make sure there are no additional adds in current year. And then, as you know, the Ripley project capital projects came out, which was a $25,000 request that was hanging that the regional school took out and said was no longer appropriate.
And just ask a quick question.
Sure.
Didn't we just put in a whole new communication system like 2 years ago?
Talking about the phones?
No.
Dispatch?
The dispatch, we put in a whole brand new system.
Right.
So I haven't scrubbed this particular request yet.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so not included
UPS might not have been.
Not included in the $2.1 million request is the 2.3 amenities building construction project that the Concord Carlisle Regional High School is recommending. So I'm going to stop here and show you that. So this is a projected $541,650 cost to the town of Carlisle. I have this right now as a warrant article, so it's being carried as free cash. However, Concord and the schools would like to include it as debt. So I'll show you what that looks like.
I'm sorry, what is the amenities building? Is this the additions down on the field?
Yes, restrooms. and-
Okay.
Restrooms under the,
Yeah, bullshit. It's like
Yeah.
Concord BS.
And if we did not approve it, does that sink the project?
It does.
Yeah.
So the cost, so this would go into your, I'm going to try and increase it. So this would be a cost. This is projected on current enrollment and can change year to year, but this would be the increase in the debt assessment, which would come through as total assessment increase for Concord Carlisle. So it starts at 62,000 for a 52-year borrow at 4.75%, and decreases down to 38,000. So you would see this come through as the assessment, unless there was another funding mechanism.
And that'd be FY25.
You wouldn't see that till
No, it's
26.
and it's 15-year
Mhm.
note, I think they said. Yes.
15 year,
Years, yeah.
which can, I mean, they'll make it as as advantageous as possible for us. Just want to show you.
And the chart he showed us is dependent on our split being always the same for the next 15 years.
Yeah.
That could actually go up and down.
Right, right.
1 second, please.
And in fact, our projection doesn't our project currently have us in 3 years, I think it is, having our percentage going up again of the population?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
So I've been asking them to let us handle our portion of it the way we want to.
In this document that we will publish, you have the proposed 5-year capital plan updated.
Mm.
Red means it went away. Green means it's new. Yellow means it changed. So overall, not a large change. We continue to update this document and people are using it, and I appreciate that for sure.
Just real quick on that, because fire has $300,000 in the second year of this plan. Is that, and it says upgrades, is that, would that be added to the cost of a fire building renovation? Or is that instead of?
So I'm talking fast, so I mean this politely as possible, but that's in case you don't approve of building.
Okay,
They would need to start investing in the current.
yeah, okay.
So a proposed funding plan for this capital request for you to consider and change and adopt and scrub with the finance committee is a $830,000 investment of free cash. If you remember this year, we have a much larger amount of free cash than normal because of some one-time contingencies. Investment of Chapter 90, 200,000 of the 300,000 remaining MFC funds could help offset some of this capital. 900,000 in debt for the fire truck, and 50,000 of ARPA, which may have already changed tonight.
Yeah.
So the overall balance here would be a negative 109, meaning you'd have that 109 left to spend somewhere. Until
You could use less free cash and stay to your 12%, right? Because
yes,
right.
Or cut it.
You showed good dipping below 12 in your.
Yes. So this is how you could fund that if you fully funded it.
Yeah.
Not saying you will. So some proposed warrant articles that are currently on the table. The $3,000 is an annual appropriation to make sure our OPEB study is correct. The amenities building is on here. That'll likely come out if it's debt, which would free up a lot of free cash.
Kidding.
And then planning is asking for a 3-year GIS investment of $15,000 a year for continuing to develop local layers and implement our GIS system, which is quite popular across the departments. And then there are 3 warrant articles related to the Cranberry Bog, bog house repairs, the Fifth Street dike, and a water management plan, all totaling 120,000. Those are requests from the conservation.
And there's not state money or other sources to do those things?
It is unlikely because these would be considered maintenance. So I also don't think it would qualify for CPA, but I'm not sure without investigating.
And these 3 warrant articles are coming from how do I say this, a finalized plan for handling the Cranberry Bog overall, or that is still up in the air. And so these are individual requests without an overarching plan.
Lots to unpack there, Barney, but there's
Yeah.
kind of 3 big things going on. There's the Cranberry Bog Dam #1, which is
Yep.
getting a lot of attention right now for what to do with that maintenance. There's the use of the bog,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the maintenance of the bog. So these are all related to the maintenance.
And the house.
Yes.
And the house is in here, but I'm asking, maybe I should say it
Is there a
more.
master plan for it? No.
Yeah, okay.
While we're talking about the bog house repairs, is the MSC not responsible for bog house repairs?
They are not. So the Cranberry Bog in its entirety, to include the building, is under Article 97, which is under the control of the CONSCOM.
I guess the only other question is, are we going to end up with abandoned costs after they get a plan and they find that what they did has to be undone because it doesn't fit with their master plan, or it becomes the tail wagging the dog of the master plan?
It'd be great if looking at whether or not we're gonna do this article for the Bog House, if we could see what we've spent over the previous years.
Sorry, can you say that a little louder?
It'd be great if we could see what we've spent over the previous years on the Bog House.
Really want to know that?
I do.
Well, I mean, we have spent money. We spent for the well. There was a good 10K for sure. I forget what else
Yeah,
we
I'm
have.
wondering
Yeah.
now,
That's
but
what he's asking. Yeah.
it'd be
Yeah.
great to know.
So this year's budget draft, as requested and as I learn, all of you great Carlilians and what you like and all the boards and committees, I'm trying to offer stronger recommendations for you to move on and off of. So this is a current and projected debt schedule based off items that were identified as potential debt. So those include a new fire truck, the school HVAC, the dispatch radios, the town hall roof, and the coming DPW gas pump. The years at the bottom are when we would borrow, not when we would do the project. So a year before they would be authorized, a year after we would borrow. And the ranges in the bottom there demonstrate how much it would cost in total, and then what the annual budget impact would be annually. So I plug that. So let's say we talked about this during capital planning. If we held debt constant, this chart shows you what would happen. So if you introduce the new debt in the years as shown, you would hold your total debt to around 1.3 million. And then you would still have capacities as shown in the sixth column called hold capacity. So that's what's left to be able to borrow.
To be able to borrow if you keep your debt constant.
Right. Or you could cut that from the budget. So,
And so it doesn't include, for example, the amenities building, if we debt finance that,
Or the police station.
doesn't,
or any of the projects.
or any of the projects.
Any projects, right.
So this is what you have left to fight.
So is most of that tail still our school building from?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And that falls off. Let me get that for you, but it's in the next 10 years. So that would be debt. So this would be holding debt to around 2.5 to 3.5% of the operating budget. And that does not include school debt.
Right.
Okay, so then a quick calculation of town reserves based off this budget proposal. So the total current reserves is 5.8 million and change, which is approximately 17.5% of your operating budget, proposed operating budget. So with a 12% policy target, that gives you 1.566 million in free cash to use for expenses, to reserve, or to hold for future projects. With the projected expenses unscrubbed as shown in this project, that use total would be 1.648 million. So reserves after use, again, as proposed in this budget, not done yet, would be 4.1 million left over, or 11.79% of this budget's projected operating budget. So right around your target. So this is a plan, not the plan for you to work from. So then everybody's favorite part, what would be the tax impact? So this proposal demonstrates a 4.07% increase in taxes. So I'd like to talk a little bit about this. The valuation, as I mentioned in the preamble before the building stuff, important building stuff, talked about how the valuation will change the average tax bill, right? You could use the median, you could use the average, but we're using the average as a way of indicating how the budget fluctuates. So this is a conservative number because it doesn't bake in some new growth, but then that can be a little misleading as well, because if values go crazy in single family houses, then this number wouldn't be accurate. So Brian and I worked, and we believe within a reasonable tolerance that this would be about what the tax increase would be, 4.07%. If you take out what I said tonight with the Middlesex retirement, you would be down to 3.91%. If state aid comes in higher or you make any cuts, that number will continue to drop. So this equals what we believe to be the highest level budget that will be passed in FY25. And it is higher than the 3% that we talked about. So lots of decisions to make. It's about 0.33% for every $100,000 you cut or gain.
0.33%. Yep. 0.33%.
So an interesting chart, a little bit of an eye chart, is the plugging these numbers under the budget, the line that says budget into the financial forecast for the next 4 years, you see the same trend of excess levy capacity dropping, a big spike in FY 27, which we do think is leveling off. We don't want to promise that, but if school enrollment continues to go the way it's going, you might not see as big of a jump. And then again, people will move.
Might not see as big of a jump in the regional assessment.
Correct. As they redo the numbers and they get more fidelity, it looks like that bump might be less significant. That you're seeing around a 3.5 to 4% increase in taxes based on these numbers and the projections that we continue to give you.
And again, that's not layering on construction debt service.
So next steps, and then I'll take questions. This is supposed to just be an introduction to you for the budget. So large outstanding, we already know the assessment from the Middlesex Retirement Board, so that is solved and will help reduce the costs of this overall budget. The final projections for health insurance are scary. We do have an insurance advisor group that might recommend some structural changes to insurance that might alleviate some of that cost, but that can't be promised. We're hearing anything from 10 to 20% increase in health insurance, which would devastate our budget. The school budgets have been at draft 1 and they're not finalized yet. So that may increase or decrease these budgets. And then COLA employee benefit decisions are still yet to be made, and we reserve that for the FinCom and the select board. I did want to give you what I think we can afford, which is a 2% COLA. Proposed budget actions remaining in January. The marathon meetings are scheduled for mid-January with the Finance Committee. The governor's budget comes out January 20th, and we should know state aid figures at that point. We will update our local receipts in January and provide you a picture to make sure that we're not overspending in our local receipt projections. And then hopefully we have our health insurance numbers by then. They're supposed to be released on January 20th. In February, we'll finalize town meeting warrant articles, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to discuss there. There's a lot of money in them. Finalize the capital plan, and there will be joint meetings between the select board and the FinCom. And then in March, your public hearing. In April, you publish your town meeting warrant, and potentially late April, early May, hold your annual town meeting.
We really need to set that date.
Right.
So these documents are pretty comprehensive. I swung through them very fast and gave you highlights. I'd be happy to entertain them. And as I said, this isn't the first time or the last time you'll see, well, this is the first time. This won't be the last time you see them.
I have some questions, if I may. Starting up towards the top, obviously, and I think probably did for, actually, let me ask a separate question first. One of the things that a lot of companies are facing is a massive increase in property insurance and cyber insurance. How do we look for that?
Very good. So we have to overcome, we under budgeted this year. So we have to overcome that, which is about a 2% increase. And then they held us at 0, assuming we don't have any additional loss. And we have that for 2 years.
Wow.
It's good news. We have some losses though, so I'll temper it.
Okay. Where I last worked, we were looking at a 40% increase.
Oh, I'm glad you don't work here.
Yeah. So, I mean, obvious one that jumps out to me is the 3.75 for the Carlisle schools, particularly when that does not include a number of other items that are in this budget, right? It doesn't include the health insurance splits, because I think they get it. It doesn't include, the increases in health insurance, retirement assessment increase. And so if you look at the town budget increase, that is actually much higher than 3.75 for the school. And I think.
If you put in the cost of the benefits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't put it in, then it makes that 3.75 look much better. I think that the regional school has all of those benefits in their budget, right? And they're at 3.
Yeah.
And they're at 3.75, I think you said.
Regional is at 2.51 with that.
2 point, yeah. So
it's 3.75 overall operating budget increase with it.
I'll touch the third rail. Something has to happen here at 3.75, particularly since it doesn't really include any of the other things. That's just my feedback. A question about the I know you said this, but could you remind me, what is the water management plan?
So that is, I don't know how to say it without describing it, the management of water inside the cranberry bog and what to do into the future.
Cranberry bog water management, different than the hydrogeologic study.
Yes, no, I'll never bring that to you again.
Okay, all right. All right, so that's just for the cranberry bog.
Yes.
And then a new fire truck? Is this a new pumper, a new tanker? Do we know what it is? A new ladder truck? What are we? It's just the first I've heard of it. New fire truck.
It has been on the plan. We have described it as being debt funded. It does need to happen. It could move, but
What is
that
it though?
it's 900,000 either way.
What kind of
What, do we know what it
piece of
is?
equipment is it?
I don't want to say it wrong.
Okay.
Okay.
I assume it's a tanker, but
Um,
and 900,000 might be low.
yes. I would, okay.
But we are looking nationwide at our first $1 million basic fire trucks,
Yeah, because I know that
$3 million ladder
have
trucks.
two pumpers now, and I'm not saying we don't need them because I know that we don't have fire hydrants and everything. But when we bought the new pumper, the old one was put outside, and we were promised, we're never going to ask you to replace this one.
Yeah.
It may be that we need it, but I think we just need to be transparent about it if that's the case. If we're replacing something that we were promised we would never have to replace, we're just going to keep it because it still had some useful life.
So in the capital planning model, there is the 15-year fire truck replacement plan that shows each one by year. So I can get that too. But chief is being transparent. Whether or not they move or shift is up to the town.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then just my last thing is just a general comment. You know, I personally think that we should use as little of our free cash and our stabilization as we possibly can, or else we're never going to be able to afford police stations and fire stations in the future.
I agree.
I think, you know, we have to know that those are out there, and now is not the time to spend any money on something that isn't absolutely necessary. A 4.07% increase in taxes is massive.
It's gonna be higher. We're gonna jam a police station in there.
Yes.
What's $3 million mean in interest in it won't be the first year. I guess we get a year reprieve, but I guess in 26 that comes out, right?
I mean, I know that we've talked about this a lot. The fact that we need to really think, and we need to be, you know, careful about what we're spending our money on and everything. I'm just saying it again. I really think we need to, and I think we really need to go back to the school and say, you know, 3.75.
It's 300,000 a year.
There you go. That's 1% by itself, right? Is that what you said? 0.33% per 100K. So that's another percent. You're at 5% now. I mean, not maybe this year, but you know what I'm saying.
But we know that we're going to be increasing it.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
before the fire station. I mean, that's the cheap
Right.
building.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I guess the other question that you can ask about the fire station is, are we building on to garage those trucks though?
Right. So with all of what I just said, Brian, this is absolutely amazingly awesome. And
Yeah,
just
great job. Yeah.
Yeah.
never seen anything like this before. It's really, really
Very
great. And it allows us to ask these picky questions because you've already answered all the other ones.
It's 1%, Dave. That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, yes, you said.
So you said it's
0.33 for every
You know,
100,000.
100, so 300.
I remembered it and did the math. Awesome.
Okay, so we got to work it out for it, but I agree. It's a great start. And I guess, is it for us from a process standpoint? Given that we have this framework, we got a general sense, is it for us to, task is not the right word, but to charge the FinCom with some goal, like,
So you
about?
did, and they've taken that during the goals part of the budget, which was early.
Yeah.
You could reiterate to them for sure, but they have the same mindset that you do going into their marathon meetings. So my idea of a budget process as we've tried to work through, I think I have good relationship, both FinCom and Select Board is, here is the budget. And now it's time for you to make the policy decisions, but we're saying this is a level services budget for the town as requested by each department.
Yeah, and we need
So-
to build the police station and the fire station into it now.
So I did modeling with the FinCom on a $15 million borrow. And the numbers ranged from 3 to 6% tax increase annually.
And roughly 3 for the police station and therefore 12 for fire, or just total 15?
We just came up with a number to try and model it.
Okay,
1% for the police.
the 15 million borrow. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's probably about right though, Marty.
3 and 12, yeah.
And I'm not like here to do doom and gloom, but that doesn't include the DPW and any idea of a community center.
Yeah. I have a different question to ask you about the where you say it's a true level services budget. So I'm a little confused then when I look at the departments list that you give us, where their increases, DPW plus 3%, Board of Health 3.75, buildings inspections 21, police 3.5, and then the town administrator a whopping 47.77.
You would know about that. That
Yeah.
includes the COLA and the health insurance.
Yeah, but just,
That's his pay increase.
but tell me, how are you, I don't quite understand how this is level services unless you're saying it all balances out to not, if you, those departments that we're under are offsetting the ones that are over. So what's?
No,
yeah,
that's not
so-
what level service is. It means
So level funded is no increase. Level services is the
no
service.
change in services.
yeah. You
Okay.
don't add.
So where it says, because you have some things, where did it say
Well,
here?
you might have to
Uh,
add fees if you determine you need to provide the service. right? That's-
Well, yeah, but
Normally you don't.
service usually means that
Means no fees, right?
you're not changing the service. You're gonna-
So where there's the notes out to the side say, where we've added, hours, or we've added the land use assistant. How do, I want to understand, these are all increases that we've already incurred. And you're saying we're going to maintain those increases in payroll costs. Is that right?
So
And there's no new hiring proposed here.
no, and I want to
Okay.
be transparent.
Yeah.
This is tough to explain, but the approved hours were done in FY 24,
Mhm.
not going into 25. And the restructuring of departments is a net reduction in cost and FTEs. So we've combined positions and not decreased the responsibility, but decreased the titles and other things of pay. That money was shifted and there's still a delta of gain to the budget.
Yeah. I think it would be worth being able to show that, separately, because for those that are following it at all, outside of people like us in the FinCom, there's a bit of a perception that we are adding, significant numbers of staff. We've added staff to town hall,
They
which
never
in
look
some
at the-
cases we have, right?
They never look at the treasurer minus 26.
Right. No, I know. So I think it might be helpful to just have a very simple graph that explains that in fact there's a net reduction in town hall staffing.
But to the,
Well, the cost of
The
town. hall
cost, I
staffing.
shouldn't say it right, the cost of
Yes,
the
because,
town
yes,
hall.
there may be more staff, but
The cost,
Yeah.
right. We've reorganized it, which I think's been
reorganized.
great.
There isn't more staff, there's less.
that's right.
yeah, so it's useful to show that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with Barney, but I think the bigger picture is level service, which in concept is if I'm a citizen, I get the exact same. If I'm a student, I get the same services at school. If I'm, a builder, I get the same service. 3, I don't like it either, but in the inflation environment we're in and looking at the drivers like insurance and these various things that go up, double digits, it's not a crazy number at level service. If we want to
Hmm.
get serious about,
Which number isn't crazy?
the 4%, in the threes to the four, you know, the math.
The 4 point whatever. it
Yeah,
is.
I mean, that's
Right.
what's happening in
But
the
it
world.
does make the 3.75 school budget crazy because that doesn't include any of those increases.
Well, no, but on that one, I was gonna comment. If you were gonna do it true that way, you would have to put in the denominator as well, their portion of the healthcare, and, you know, you would put all those normal things. I'm not really saying well. On an apples to apples basis right now, what they did last year and this year's 3.75. Alongside it goes a benefit package that they don't pay for.
Right.
But they didn't pay for before either. It's running. in
Right,
parallel.
but all the other departments do pay for it. So if you're looking at their,
No, they don't, no.
well, all the other departments combined, when we look at the budget, there's.
Oh, the budget, yeah,
Yes.
sure, yes.
That's what I'm looking at. So if
Yeah.
there's the school budget
Right.
and then there's the everything else
Well,
budget.
you put them, right, okay, but I mean, I guess,
And they're most of the staff.
I'm not disagreeing with any of it. My major point is that level service is what it sounds like. You get the same thing you got. And if inflation globally
Right.
is 3 or 4%, it's gonna cost you 3 or 4%. The
Or,
bucket may change a little, but it's gonna cost you that. So if we really want to say, hey, we got to be in the twos because we got to make room for these other projects, it really means a decrease in service. There's kind of no way around that, in my opinion. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I think we should, but that's what it means.
That's saying that cost increases aside for COLA and insurance and all of that, a level service increase of the schools is 3.75.
No. The schools is also offering level service, I believe.
Right, and it's gonna cost.
You're saying no. Why are you saying no?
3.75%. It's gonna-
Yeah, their cost, that's why. Again, you could tease out the differences, but basically between 3 and 4%, your own household. I eat the same steak or the chicken or the beans or whatever I eat. I pay the same mortgage. When you look in aggregate, that's kind of what people are seeing. If people around their kitchen table say we got to cut because we've got college tuition to pay for, it means reduction in level service. That's what it means. I just want us to be
mhm.
clear. I think the school, I was at their school budget meeting, the preliminary one. It is a level service budget. I'm not saying they can't cut things. But what they've prepared is a level service budget. There are certain unfunded mandates, like a kid moves in and he has an out of district, or in this case, a VOTEC, or the insurance bill says, hey, because you lost record. I mean, there's things we cannot do anything about.
Right, but that wasn't in that budget, right?
No, it's in.
It's in its own,
VOTEC's
It
in.
was in its own, it was out of the 3.75.
it's its own budget.
That's.
It's not in the
Out
three.
of the 3.75.
No, it's not in the 3.75. I'm talking about the global town budget that results in a 4%
Yeah.
tax increase. I'm not teasing out any, just globally
Mhm.
between, depending how you do the math, with high 3s to 4%, that little bracket, that's what people see. So that's what we're pushing on the taxpayer. And the taxpayer's also seeing that in the grocery store, and maybe not the gas pump anymore, but I mean, it's not great, but it is kind of the world we're in of inflation. I just want to make that.
So let's say we wanted to go back to that 3% target number for the increase in the tax bill, the average tax bill, that we didn't want it to go above 3%, which is what we had talked about, sometime this past year.
We gotta find 300.
We'd have to find $300,000. And so if we asked you as the town administrator and the finance department to do that, is that something that you could do?
Sure.
Yeah.
There's though, one of the things that if we're going to do cuts, I would hope that we wouldn't, I don't know how to put this exactly. I would hope that we would do it proportionately. So if you're 75% of the budget, you should take 75% of the cut.
Yeah.
Because
You
you
do it on a percentage basis, right?
no,
Yeah, if you're,
Yeah, you allocate, yes.
same thing you're saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, because what I don't like is when we say, well, we're gonna cut, everybody's gonna cut 3%. Well,
Yeah.
that's not fair to the one who was only getting $1.50 compared to the.
Right, but it may not, in theory, I agree with you, but in practice, there may be some areas where you can get a disproportionate savings and other areas where you can't. So school budget, if you say to them, you got to cut, if our target is 300K, then they have a 200K, well, they don't, I guess they have half, but they probably have a 150K target. So you give them that. But you may find that there's nuggets of,
You may,
Yeah, you may.
that can be adjusted, but at least
Yeah.
that's the place where I would start.
Or the other thing you look at is revenue.
Yeah.
Do we change our allocation of revenue?
I mean,
allocation.
in our
Or not
budget.
allocation, but
Right.
free cash or stabilization. I mean, the
Oh,
things
that.
Nathan is arguing we shouldn't, we shouldn't use
Or
more.
you shouldn't use more, no.
Or raise our estimate of what we think we're going to get from, local receipts, or still don't understand why we don't put a growth estimate in here. Why don't we, I know you said we don't, but I don't understand why.
Because you don't tax to the maximum that you could, and you
Mhm.
never have.
Mm-hmm.
So that new growth is eaten up by trying to explain it simply, because it's not simple.
Yeah.
You could tax here, you have taxed here, the new growth gets lost in the noise.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a 3% tax increase?
No, she's saying
Well,
that,
I'm just saying, she's
Local
asking for a
revenue.
3% tax
Right.
increase.
Right.
What the new growth does is it increases the amount you can tax.
The
You're
levy.
doing a real tax, and you're asking to
Yeah.
include a could tax.
no, but I think,
When you went back here in your, all the information you gave us, when you looked back at 23, you show, I've forgotten where it is, but you show increased revenue from what we projected.
right, you're
And-
forecasting a decrease in revenue from sources, not taxes, other than tax.
Other than taxes, yep.
Yeah.
And she's saying, why don't you at
We-
least,
We could
some-
change that. I mean,
well, if we have,
there's a question about how conservative we want to be or how much risk we want to take, but that is the other side of it, is to look at the revenues estimate projection. Yeah.
Yeah, but so when you have the past revenue, let's say my house was only worth $100,000 and then last year, and then it got up 50,000, I'm going to pay more tax. And that's the growth. That's also part of growth. But, and that you can, when you're looking backwards, you can tell exactly what that growth is, but it's really hard to project forward.
That's not growth, that's value.
Well, okay, well, but it's.
Growth
but
would
it-
be if you
It's
added.
It's an increase in,
I think you guys are talking across purpose.
Right.
I think Barney's talking about sources of revenue like local receipts, excise taxes, I don't think like that.
I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
It could be the tax revenue of adding that addition.
Yeah.
And getting more tax revenue if you're building. it.
Well,
All of it's
Yeah.
adding taxes.
That's a whole nother, right. But I want to point out, I want to go back to the Kate's proportionality
Hmm.
point and just point out that, for example, we're not going to tell CCRSD
Hmm.
that they've got to cut what would be for them probably 100K out of our budget.
Hmm.
They're going to tell us to go take a hike. So they're off the table. You're not going to tell the insurance company, you got to cut your premium by 50K. You're going to say, sure, what coverage shall I eliminate? So there are, but when we do the exercise, the departments that actually have discretion, and schools is one of them, right? Are going to bear a larger proportion
Yeah.
of that because that's all we can do.
So I would push back a little. So Concord does do that to the regional school. It's Carlisle that doesn't.
We don't have, yeah, but I'm telling you, spent a lot of years in the trenches over there. We can try it, but I know what the answer will be. What we can do is we can go to Concord Select Board and Concord FinCom and plead the case that they need to sharpen the pencil, and we'll ride along with them. That's how we have to get that done. If we just raise our hand and say,
we've been
we
working.
don't like your budget,
We've
they're
been working with the FinCom. Lynn and I have been.
like, okay, good.
That's and just one other quick question under.
I'm here all night.
Under,
Yeah, well,
under
10 minutes to
projected,
10.
under projected expenses, it says 2% townwide COLA no new town positions. I just want to make sure that town includes all town employees, including the schools.
No, so the schools have a contract for the majority of their employees. I believe the administration takes the townwide COLA or whatever the union is taking.
I think this year it's 2%.
Okay.
So it could be the
My
same.
question
I don't
was
know.
more not about the 2%. I'm sorry. My question was more about, are there new school employees in their budget?
In their budget presentation, there is a new school employee,
Okay.
a reading intervention specialist, if I remember.
Okay. So we should say one new town position, right?
So I don't present the school budget. So I'm talking on the municipal side,
Okay,
which is around 30% of the budget. There are no new employees.
right. So then maybe say no new town hall positions or something like that,
Yeah.
just to make it clear.
Okay, it does include police, fire, DPW.
Or maybe you say non-school or something, right?
Because if they're hiring a new person, how is that level service?
Why I was saying it's not a level service.
Their argument is that in order to provide the same service, they need a new person.
Okay. Because of an
Because the
increase in-
demand is
because of an
higher?
Increase in students.
Or need, yep.
Mhm.
I think it's need, not students. I don't know what their enrollment is.
They have, yeah, I think. They've identified the need for they're at, I mean, this is questions I asked, so they're pretty much right at the upper limit of their recommended class sizes for most of the grades, but they have in grades 3 through 6 because of student performance. They need some kind of literacy support. And it's a needs based. Now you could argue again, you didn't have it last year, but in other years they've had it. They kind of match those supports with what they believe that particular demographic needs for help.
Okay, all right, sorry, don't mean to bring us down a rat hole. That's enough questions for round one.
Yeah. Okay.
Motion to adjourn? Oh.
No. We have lots of things we actually have to do. We've done the 8:30, 9:25. We're at the 9:25 item unless people have other questions about the budget.
No.
Okay, ain't we got fun? Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission local license approvals. And I have to get back to, sorry. Give me a second to get back to where we supposed to be.
Page 93, if anybody's
Yeah.
using the packet on the website.
Boom.
There it is. It's up on the screen.
Oh, thanks.
I move that the select board, wait, is the first one isn't local license, right? ABCC, so should I just
and
go?
but we do have to,
I move the select board vote to approve the off-premise license renewal to Berry Barn LLC doing business as Fern's Country Store located 8 Lowell Street, Carlisle, Mass. 01741 for calendar year 2024.
except that I'm wondering if we don't have to have this first one
The resident
resident
population.
because it's also to the board and to the local license.
Okay, and I move that the select board set the estimated temporary increased resident population as of July 10th, 2024 to 5,500 residents.
Second.
You're saying that we have to have that one in order to do the license?
Yes.
Um,
Okay, there's a motion and second.
I just had a quick,
Anybody want an explanation from Ryan or can we just?
I had a quick question. I thought Matt sold Ferns.
He did, but
He kept the permit, I think.
the-
Very concise is in part of the deal, he maintained a license for them to transfer it. They can't transfer it in time, so the ABCC recommended that maintain the license and work on the transfer in the next year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
okay. We have a vote, a motion and a second. Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
That was unanimous.
I move the select board vote to approve the application submitted by the Carlisle Historical Society for the issuance of a one-day special license to sell beer and wine at an event to be held on December 17th, 2023 during the hours of 2 p.m. through 5 p.m. at 698 Concord Street, Carlisle, Mass. subject to the applicant providing proof of host liquor liability coverage.
Second.
Okay, we got the application there and it has been signed by Chief Amendola that there's no detail necessary. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
That was unanimous.
Do we have to vote separately on the second bullet? Or did we combine both the
combined them.
first and the second one?
Bind them,
Okay.
Find them.
efficient.
Okay, so now thing is town administrator report.
All right.
The fastest 3 minutes in football.
Got it. So there's some town hall updates and some HR updates. Please read my report. Most of them have been discussed tonight. For the budget update, I think we handled that as well. You had previously said that machines that we've been replacing for our employees, our computers were at their end of life. So we've been looking for sustainable options to dispose of them. Local volunteer Bob Supnick, who's a name that I'm sure you all know, has been helping us donate our older laptops to organizations that provide support to vulnerable populations. Received a note from Bob that the Jewish Family Services of Metro West received donated laptops that assisted refugee families from Ukraine, Honduras, and Venezuela. Thought that was a nice note. The tax rate has been set, as you heard at your last meeting, but has been formally done since. The tax rate is 13.33. It sped through the town, which usually means that our financial management team did a great job. So you'll see that I'll do it now at the end. Special thanks to Kelly, Sandy, and Brian. I watched them huddle together, get this done, and work as a team to submit the tax rate. So that was great to see and good to see validation of their work. Julie and I, for the Greeno Barn, have finalized the IFB with Town Council. Julie did some great work estimating some final details about incentivizing without adding cost sustainability elements to the recycling and reuse. So everything that we discussed at our meeting is in the IFB, and we should be issuing that as a Christmas present to the town and getting results back in January. That's been a great project. It's almost done. Procurement, the DPW sprinkler system is a go. We have a signed contract and we will be beginning construction soon. So that will allow our DPW employees to use that trailer as a sleeping space by the end of the winter.
Yeah, the winter.
The wastewater treatment plant MUA, you heard a lot about tonight. The dog park bids came in today. They were, surprised if you've heard this before, higher than we expected. So that project is now in jeopardy, depending whether or not the grant will increase their donation. Corey Auditorium lighting also came in, despite Jeremy's efforts, higher than expected. We do think that we will complete this project, but we have to work through the electrical construction part. So the equipment came in well below our bid, but the electrical construction came in 3 times higher than we expected, putting that total project at somewhere around 380, and we have 280 to spend. Upcoming discussion points, you will receive a road maintenance plan presentation from Niche. I think you'll enjoy it, and then wonder how you will fund that long-term capital item, but we'll figure it out together. The Comcast negotiation, we've been working with council to make sure that this is done correctly at your next meeting as a public hearing that's been properly noticed. We have allowed Comcast to come speak if they want, sent you an executive summary. If you have no questions, it'll be a quick presentation and vote, but this was a long negotiation. Special thanks to Nathan and town council for teaching me about this stuff because I had no idea. I was able to help finish the negotiation by being obstinate. So I really was helpful there.
Getting angry is more like it.
Good cop, bad cop.
I already asked all my questions, so.
Just a topic for you to consider is the delegation of police discipline. So this would be for minor offenses or suspensions under 5 days. This might lighten your load. Something to consider that we'll be bringing to you as a human resource action, but it's obviously significant and meaningful to the community. So I wanted to publicly state that it's something that we can consider and have any of you ask for additional information if necessary.
I attended the MMA webinar on Post today, and they talked about some of this, but I'm just wondering if that's all been vetted through Post.
Yes. all the same requirements are still there. It's just who does the discipline.
Yeah, okay, got it.
And then the COHS has requested approval for a strategic planning subcommittee. You'll see that at your next meeting. We're going to start this section here, communication to the select board. So one thing you did receive was a request to entertain a noise bylaw for gas-powered handheld leaf blowers. This is a general bylaw, not a zoning bylaw, so this would be select board jurisdiction if you wanted to take that up. Would like to publicly thank Jim Hall, Carol Grunike, I can finally say that, and Andy Booth for their work during a recent effective leadership development course. We got to go to their graduation and hear about how we introduce these very talented but new department heads to leadership. They were able to evaluate themselves. They were able to evaluate their departments and come up with long-term strategic plans. I think it was a great investment by the town. It was led by Mark Way, who's a name you know. And they have encouraged me to try and continue to send department heads to this in the future. So we'll consider that in FY26.
And that's in the budget already.
Yes. And then I have your next agenda.
Just before we do that, I just want to piggyback on the item here about delegating potential police discipline. And I think that I know that there's a brief conversation about this with somebody, I've forgotten who, about some of the other things that the select board does now currently, but that we should consider delegating to someone else, like
report.
cemetery deeds and the some of the dog hearing and the, permission to put up a banner, those kinds of things. I think would be really useful. And if we made a list of those and then figured out which ones we want to delegate and then figured out what needs to happen in order to make that possible.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Good fall town meeting effort.
Good.
So I put a draft agenda up on the board, and in your packet, you've heard about the Comcast hearing, the road maintenance plan. There's also a dog hearing for 40 Laurelwood Road. The dog order that you issued for that residence has been violated according to neighbors and confirmed by your dog officer and your police department. So we were properly noticed these residents that we will be looking at the dog order. I sent you a lot of detail about it. If you need more or want to speak to council, please let me know. So this is a noise complaint, not a bite complaint. I think that's important to note, but it is still a nuisance to the community and needs to be dealt with. You did receive a request to fly a flag on the town flagpole. So I need to bring to you a selection of policies about flying flags on town flagpoles. I do not want to, you can do whatever you want. I do not want to entertain it that night, give you the general overview of what policies could look like and then get that on a future agenda. But it is a nationwide conversation right now, what flags can and cannot fly. And you should decide what should fly on these town flagpoles. And that is plenty to do next meeting for the one that was supposed to be short.
Yeah. So another webinar I was at today was about boards, and they were talking about agendas and having a consent agenda. So that's another thing we could talk about, where things like the flag policy initial review, that would go on a consent agenda, which would then make it very clear to everybody that this is not really a discussion. This is receipt of information. The discussion will happen at another time. So we should talk about doing some of this as well. It's very busy with webinars today. We all fell on one day.
I'd say go for it, if you want to have them as consent agendas and let us know how that works.
Well, I just
Right. So
flying it up the flagpole. See if anybody
Policy for
salutes.
flying it up the flagpole. Move on. Go ahead and try it, Kate.
So this agenda is on the website, right? So like where we landed in the comparison of the Comcast contract to what it was and what it will be is available now, and people can look at it prior to our next meeting, right?
Oh, I can also send it out, put it up on social media, et cetera. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Good.
And
And I think we you know, we work really, really hard
Yeah,
to get a lot better coverage.
it's clear that you
We
do,
don't,
although.
we don't
it's-
know really who that's gonna, you know, how many that's gonna
Yeah.
impact. It's definitely not gonna impact the entire town because there's some people with just incredibly long driveways.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had no leverage over that. Because they're not gonna, our leverage only was where could we get them to build out the plant, the physical plant more, and they're not gonna build out the physical plant, set down somebody's driveway.
One question about the dog hearing, and maybe you said this, and I apologize if I just missed it. Are we going to get the actions that are available to us by statute ahead of the meeting the hearing next Tuesday? And is it our plan to conduct the hearing and during and at the hearing make some decision as a select board about the action we want to take? Is that our goal for next week?
I think so.
Yeah. So will we get something ahead of time?
I've requested it. I just
Okay.
haven't received it yet.
And
I'm
we can
sure
have
that-
council at the meeting, I'm assuming should be able to,
Be there.
great.
And for Comcast, so just be with us.
Yeah. Okay, great. We need to do the minutes?
Actually, review minutes, yes. Anybody?
Look good to me. I read them.
I move to approve the select board meeting minutes as presented for November 28th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Cemetery deeds.
You want me to move them
Yeah.
one at a time or all together?
All together.
All right, I move that the select board approve the transfer of land in the public burial ground at the Green Cemetery described as follows: deed 812, lot D 393, graves 1, 2, and 3 to Sarah Vukovic, 630 Rutland Street, and deed 813, lot D 413, graves 1, 2, and 3 to Rebecca Madden Sturgis, 235 Monroe Hill Road.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That was unanimous.
Madam
Please.
Chair, I have a real quick thing, sorry. I have to notify the select board that the Carlisle Police Association will have a Rotary sign from 12:18 to 1:05 for their annual Christmas tree pickup fundraiser.
Hmm.
You have been notified.
You?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Please do not leave until you get this signature packet. You mean, you're gonna,
Cemetery deeds? No,
cemetery deeds and the liquor license.
okay.
Community input.
Oh,
We have community input.
I withdraw my move to adjourn.
Anybody have any community input? No. All right, now I can
Worn them down,
entertain.
very few left. Okay,
I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
second.
Aye.
Hi.
I'm signing, I'm busy signing so I can get these,
All right, thank